What's going on, everyone, and thanks for joining me for another great conversation. As always, I appreciate you guys. This next conversation is the longest one I've had in the podcast, but it's probably one of my favorite ones because my next guest is such a role model for individuals such as my daughters, females that are minorities. In my hometown of Worcester, she personally handed out over $200,000 worth of grants to the arts and to the creatives, and that's very, very humbling to me. I introduce to you guys the hardworking and passionate Yasmin Goris.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this. And by the way, we're recording both vocal and whatever.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on the show, Yasmin. I appreciate you. But the cool thing about this is that, you know, it's like on demand, like Netflix.
Mhm.
So people don't have to see this live. And if we mess up, like I just did there, or if we say something weird, we could just edit it out,
Okay.
which
good.
is really cool.
All right. Great.
Yeah. So
No
no worries.
pressure.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on the show, Yasmin. I appreciate it. I know it was one of those weird things where you get a weird DM from somebody, and you're probably thinking like, "What a weirdo this guy is."
No, I was just like, I'm so confused. I'm like, why would someone want to reach out to me? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me go with the flow. And then I had seen your podcast like come on my news feed at some point,
Yeah.
and then I saw my friend Moses was on there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this seems cool, and I'm like, Worcester, pa'lante, let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. No, I appreciate it. And the problem with me is too, and I write long, like when I'm trying to like explain something or like ask, instead of just saying, "Hey, how are you?" I'll give you like 3 paragraphs. How are you? My name is this. This is what I do. That's how I do it. Because to me, somebody told me that's overkill and people don't like that. But to me, it's like if I just say, "Hey, how are you?" That's creepy.
I hate short conversations. I don't
Okay.
do small talk. Like this was perfect. Like, why are you here? What's the purpose? Absolutely. I made my decision. Got it.
Bingo. That's good.
So it worked.
All right, and here we are. So, Yasmin, before we get into all the great stuff that we were talking about before the show, please let the listeners know about yourself.
So, my name is Jasmine. Let's talk about that for a second. So it's Jasmine with a Y.
Okay.
So
It got me all messed up. Go ahead.
it's just not Yasmin. At any point, it's never Yasmin.
Yasmin?
So Jasmine, Jazzy, Spider, Bullet, all these nicknames that I
Yeah.
have. Yeah. So never Yasmin.
Whoa. I'm not going to let you just go by with Bullet. Please let me know Bullet. What's Bullet? What's that?
We'll talk about that later. We never
Okay,
talk about
okay.
Plumley.
That's that thug life, I guess. Okay, so Jasmine, that's going to throw me off because I'm used to just the J, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So all I tell everyone, it's a Spanish alphabet.
Yep, that's a fact, though.
And we take it from there. No, so jazz is kind of the easiest to remember. But yeah, I'm an implant from Brooklyn to Worcester. I moved here when I was about 11 years old, so kind of grew up in the city. And right now I'm just finishing up. I just transitioned from the Worcester Arts Council as the chair.
Yes.
And now I'm focusing more on my personal art. So that's really exciting. It's been an intense year, not only for
Absolutely.
the work that we were doing, but for everyone in our community. So I'm just trying to get back to myself and seeing now how I can contribute from a different, like perspective and like a different area. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited about that.
Super. Yeah. No. We want to talk. I want to talk about your personal stuff, but that's how that I saw what you were doing was on
Mhm.
a Telegram article,
Mhm.
and I want to talk about what's the Arts Council? Is that what it is?
Yes.
First of all, let anybody know what that is because I live in Worcester and I had no idea what this is.
Of course. and
Please explain that.
I'm so happy to be able to explain this. So, the Worcester Arts Council is an organization that has funds allocated every single year to put into the community for arts, humanitarian efforts for both personal and organizations.
Okay.
So, we offer 2 different grants. One is a fellowship grant that is focused more on the artists and their development, their personal development. And then there's the project grants that is you can do collaborations, you can have put on events, put on shows, all types of stuff.
Yeah.
It's very diverse, but we put the money into the organizations and really into the culture of this community. So there's an application process that starts every September,
Okay.
and it opens up and you can apply. And we have a whole council that reviews it, and it's fantastic. So much money into the community.
That's super cool. Now the obvious question that I have in mind, and get a little closer to the mic if you don't mind, just in case. How did you get in the position to even spearhead that whole thing, right? Because that sounds like something that If you ask me, it would be somebody in their like 50s or 60s, right? Like an older person that's like a Worcester native or something like that, and a white person. I don't think a minority or Hispanic woman would even be in such a position. So, how did you come from New York to here, Worcester, Plumley, to be able to spearhead something big like that? That's huge.
Bien presentada.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Let's start there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why not? Why not me?
Yeah,
That's really
I
my
love that.
question. Always, why not me? But the reality is, I was living in Boston for a while,
Okay.
and one of my biggest thing is volunteer work.
Okay.
So volunteer work is a great way to learn about different organizations, contribute to different organizations. So when I moved back to Worcester, I really saw that there was like a big art community, and I wanted to contribute.
Yeah.
So during my like volunteer search, I saw the Worcester Arts Council come up. So I emailed somebody, I did whatever. Little did I know that usually it's like you show up to the event, whatever. It was this whole process of getting voted in, and it was public, and it
Really?
was in City Hall. Yes, if I would have known all this, te lo juro, I would have never done it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was freaking out about this podcast. So imagínate if I was in front of all this a whole panel. They're
Yeah.
like, is she qualified
Yeah.
to be on this council? And I'm like, oh my
That's
god.
exactly how they be doing it too.
Yeah. It's recorded somewhere if ever somebody wants to watch it, because I was sweating.
Yeah.
So bien presentada, like I told you. So I went through,
Yeah.
and I got approved by the city manager,
Mhm.
and the process is really like it takes some time. So I get on, and the year after I got on, the chair transitioned. Yeah,
Okay.
she stepped down, so they voted me in as chair.
Wow.
And
That's
the
incredible.
day before my birthday.
Really?
Yeah, the day before my
Nice.
birthday. It was a celebration, which was cool, and it's just like when I initially applied, it
Yeah.
was because I told them representation. It's so important. Like I had a really hard time thinking I was an artist. I've been an artist, like I'm just an artist, like I'm
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, I'm like, the reason why I didn't think of that was because I've never saw someone like me. So I needed to be in a position, in a credible position,
Yeah.
because a credible position is important, that I can show my little sister,
Yeah.
show my little cousins,
Oh, yeah.
my community, like, yes, she can do it. And I'm telling people, it sounds cliche, but if I could do it,
Yeah.
anybody can do it. Anybody
Yeah,
can do it.
I
you
love
know?
it. I love it. That's big to me because, like I was telling you before we started the show, it's like I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I don't think that she understands that what her value is, what her
Mhm.
worth is, that she can do that. And I honestly, not to because she's a listener of the show. I love you, baby. Not to like that's everybody. That's every teenager, especially when you're a teenager, you get into these lapses where you don't know where your worth is, you don't know where you're headed, and you're all confused. You're not rational as a teenager. So to me, is exactly what you just said. I don't think my daughter sees enough women like her in the position of any power, never mind local power, to be able to capitalize on that.
Mhm.
And that's why I was excited when, like I said, I was scrolling through my Twitter. Nonsense, 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 Bitcoin nonsense, and then boom, I get hit with an article that's a Spanish woman that's local, that's in charge of over $200,000, and something that I'm obviously passionate in, because if you think about podcasting, it's a creator's art, right? It's
Mhm.
something that I have to create and we have to make happen. So I was just intrigued. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you
Incredible.
so much. Thank you
Yeah.
for recognizing that, because it's like,
Yeah.
although, I went in for certain reasons, you get wrapped up in that world, and
Yeah.
just like you lose sight of the reasons, not the reasons why you're on it, but like what that position actually means, because you're just doing what you're supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
and to me, not necessarily Worcester, because like I talk to my friends about this all the time. I don't have like this like love for Worcester. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like I transferred into a school and I made friends and it's cool and I like it, but I don't have like those like childhood memories
Yeah.
where like they're nostalgic.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I want to support creativity. I
Yeah.
love that, and I host workshops.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because my friend's like, I don't know art, Jazz. And I'm like, I promise you literally cannot mess up.
Yeah.
Like you can't mess up. And the name of
Interesting.
the name of my company is Guzangi,
Okay.
which means your creative inner child.
And what culture?
In the Guzangi's world.
I love that though. That's really cool.
Because it's like creativity is just something you're born with.
Yeah.
You have to be able to just tap into it
Okay.
and recognize that it's there. So in my class, the the techniques that we use are abstract and they're fluid. So no piece is the same.
Okay.
You pick the colors, so it's
Yeah.
really fun. And by the end of it, people feel so inspired and like, wow, I actually did that. And it's actually amazing.
Yeah.
Jazz, like, mine looks better than yours.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you got that?
yeah. And I'm like, actually, it looks really good.
Yeah. Well,
So I learned so much from my students and it's awesome.
really cool, because to me it is I want people to, it's a perception thing, right? Like, she may, if it was me, I would probably hate what I was doing, but you may come over and be like, that's dope. And I think a lot of people forget that we have this thing where we want to like impress everybody, and we don't really need to impress everybody to inspire people. We just need to do it, and then the people that like it latch onto it and they like it.
And that's something I'm learning, because it's just
Yeah.
like, I'm obsessed with color and I'm obsessed with paint. So I
Yeah.
call it playing with paint. And I people were gravitating towards it. I'm like, oh, this interests you?
Yeah.
And they're like, that's really cool. I'd like to learn. And I'm like, of course. My number one thing is I love education. I went to school
Nice.
for education. I want to be like, I just want to be an instructor. That's my thing. So it's like, whatever I learn, I try to like show,
Channel it out.
Yeah. So the fact that they're interested in that, yes, here you go, more of that.
Yeah. So you host these workshops. So these workshops are for, new and experienced people, or anybody, or?
It's always beginners. So it started at very, very like, have those crazy nights with your friends, too much drinking, too much party, and it's 3 a.m. and you're talking about the most ridiculous thing. So we're talking about this art, and my friend's like, we should have an event. And I'm like, yeah, drag queens. Yeah, let's do this, whatever, right? So I was working at an organization and I had an intern, and he had mentioned like, you should start a business. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Well, from one thing to another, it's like I come into our intern meeting and he's like, I created a logo for your business. I created an event for you, all this stuff.
Wow.
I got connected to an organization, which is Redemption Rock.
Okay, what do they do?
So they're a beer place, like a bar.
Okay. I think I've heard of them.
Like off of Shrewsbury Street.
Cool.
Amazing organization.
Yeah.
They are great. So I went and I talked to
Shout out to them.
Yep, shout out to them. We had a conversation about hosting events, and I ended up doing my first event there, and it was just a paint night. It was super fun. I loved it, but it was so funny that it wasn't what I thought it would be. I thought my first event would be like my community.
Yeah.
I haven't tapped into that yet.
Okay.
For some reason, I haven't like gotten within the right channel. So that's my goal this year, to really like offer it to like an audience, or I don't know, people who might be interested that might not never been exposed to it before,
Okay, fair. Yeah. So what did you get the first time? What type of crowd did you get the first time out? Over there at the brewery? Was it just?
So it was actually older crowd.
Okay. So you were ready for the college kids, and you got grandpa.
I mean, I'm thinking drag queens in my mind, right?
Oh, okay.
Being like electric crazy, like no, Jasmine, like people are just here to have a drink.
Yeah, to have some Chardonnay.
But my friends know, like every time I try to have one, strobe light, I hire a DJ.
Yeah.
Being extra, like I love things real extra. Like it has to have a strobe light. Now I'm doing like these glow in the dark, like black light parties, and they're super awesome, but it's really because I want to have a good time, and I'm like, you want to come too?
I think everybody will have a good time. So what is the end goal for somebody who comes to your workshop? Is it just to be creative, or is it just to unwind? Is it all these things at once?
So it's all those things. It's really, I try to give them an experience, and not necessarily like a curated experience. It's just, there's paint, but I don't want that to be the focus of like their experience. Like, I don't know how to do this. It's just come in, let's have a good time, let's vibe with your friends, let's listen to music, let's be real extra. There's paint, and you're fabulous, and we're fabulous, and it's so fun, and we're probably drunk, and it's that type of vibe. There's like paint nights.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever been to one at a bar.
I've never been to one, but me and my wife have scoped it out to try to do it.
Yeah, so those are really fun, but I never been to one before I actually did mine.
Oh, that's interesting.
So which was good, and then I went to one after because I'm like, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
There's no way.
So what'd you learn when you went to the other one?
I was like, mine is really cool.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, like, the universe knows what I need, because I planned this whole event. It was 32 students, my first one.
Wow.
Which was real extra para presentar.
Yeah.
You see? First
listen.
event, 32 people. It was sold out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll do it alone. I got this.
Yeah.
My friends are like, what?
Bad idea.
Tú estás loca. It ended up taking 8 people
Oh, man.
to set things up, so it's like, support system. Let me
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you. And like, I really love that. Like, when I talk about this, like, people get excited for it. They really
Yeah.
want to be part of it. And I'm just like, okay, let's all play
Sure.
together, So I really love that part that I'm able to work with organizations or
Yeah.
volunteers
Yeah.
who want to either like collaborate together or just want to be part of something, because community is fun, right? Like being
Yeah.
part of something that you can collaborate. Like, I work with he's now my assistant creative director, because he's been at
Boom.
all my events. But
Got,
it was like this crazy idea.
he got a title?
I tell him, you could call yourself whatever you want. You can be the president, you
Yeah,
can be the
yeah.
CEO.
Shout out to him.
Right? He's like, he makes everything. He's like, yeah, glitter. And I'm like, yes, the glitter.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot the glitter, right, Chris?
Yeah.
So, it's like
Love that.
collaborating. It's just like there's me as an artist and
Yeah.
like having my ideas, but being able to collaborate and get ideas from other artists and other creatives. I think that's where the spark is.
Sure.
And I feel like that's where you like share the moments and share like and expand.
Yeah.
So I really try to like, me and Moses like talk about ideas all the time. And, he tells me about his stuff. And I just think it's like having people within the same community that although we do different type of work, there's certain I would say challenges that we all face, that it's really good to have someone that understands what you're
Right.
dealing with,
Right. Yeah, yeah. And that's good to have. I think I found that out too late, right? Like when I first started doing business and I started doing digital marketing, I had mentors. I have a few friends that were really good and helped me along the way. But I think I was very egotistical that I could do everything on my own, right? And kudos to me. I'm a fast learner, so I learned a lot and I built a lot of stuff and I was able to learn. But at the end of the day, I was so burnt out from trying to do everything that I never got that creative vibe. I never got that creative boost. And you're right. This podcast, I told you before we started recording, is a living example of that. If my buddy didn't come up to me and say, hey, man, like, that's really dope stuff that you're doing. You should really keep doing that. It helps me out. I probably would have not continued. And that was like collaboration, but it was collaboration from him because he could have kept it to himself and not said anything and just kept it pushing. But instead, we were sitting there. We were all like on a porch smoking and doing something like that. And he looked at me. He's like, what's up with the podcast? And I was like, oh, it's done. Nobody's listening to it. I don't really care about it. And he was like, nah, I'm listening to it. And it changes my day. And I like that. So shout out to him. He's an avid listener. And this podcast is great. Here we are.
And it's so important to have those friends, right? That it's like,
absolutely.
Because you lose motivation in these things. It takes a lot of energy. Like,
Jasmine, can you slide down in front of you a little bit? Yeah, you're fine. We're good. I just want to make sure.
All right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely good to have friends like that. I don't think I have enough friends like that. Hopefully, I've made a new friend like that.
you only need one. I swear, you only need one. And honestly, the people, and yes, you need your friends, but strangers too. Sometimes people see things in you that you don't see in yourself, and it's really good to just have like someone just recognize that. And I think we're our own self-critics, right? Like,
for sure,
really harsh, and we doubt ourselves. And consistency, right?
Yeah,
it's like we talked about that, just making sure that we push through. And
for sure,
I was in and out of fake depression for a whole year. Like, do I do art? No, I just got Netflix. This is way more fun, you know? And like not feeling guilty. And I was just like, I'm just gonna like figure out other things and not do art, and I'll come back to it, because like it's very, I don't want to say like, it's a really like, you have to get in the zone in order to like be able to produce like stuff that you love. And at least to me as a creative, I couldn't get into that mind space. You know?
It's super hard. I have a book around here by Stephen Pressfield called I think it's The Art of War. I always confuse it with The War of Art. Actually, I think it's The War of Art. But anyways, the point of the book is he talks about how people just wait for creativity to strike him, for strike you. And he's like, it doesn't work that way. You just got to sit your butt in the chair and do what it is that you do, right? Don't wait for the muses. Don't wait for this like electricity event to come and pop out of nowhere. If you do it consistently and you sit down and you put in the work, you're going to strike gold more often than you think you are.
That's a great point, because those moments do come, but it's...
Let's hide up a little bit, Jasmine. Sorry.
Oh, todavía?
No, está bien. It just sounds a little low on my headphone, but it could be me.
How about now? That's better?
Yeah. I think it'll be good just in case.
All right.
Go ahead.
So...
Yeah, you don't be sensitive with that thing. You can yank that thing around. It's good.
Every time you stop me, I'm like, where were we?
No. But we were talking about that. It was a good point where you got to sit your butt down and be consistent.
Oh, actually, my best work has come from while I was working.
Interesting. Give me more.
So, like, let's say I'm working on a piece, whatever, and it'll be after the 15 piece consecutively that I find a new technique or
Yeah,
something else that might work. And I know that it would have never happened if I was taking breaks
for
because
sure.
it's fluid. It's happening in the moment, you know? So I think it's like that's where the consistency comes. That's where the spark comes. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's the
because
hard that's the hard part. That's the hard
that's the
that's the
hard part.
magic.
Yeah. Well, the hard part is when your brain comes in and gives you these, and everybody's done this. I'm the master of this. I could bring my wife right now, and she'll tell you, "Hey, I gotta go sit down and write, right? Because I write, right? That's
Mhm.
my thing. So, hey, I gotta go sit down and write. Or I gotta edit the video. But man, let me just do some dishes, right? And let me, right. And then you do the dishes. It's like, diablo, pero el baño necesita a little bit.
Right. Right. Di que, oh yeah, I'm vacuuming. Like what?
Why
Like
am I
what?
vacuuming? There's nothing on the floor. You're just vacuuming. That's the creator's dilemma, in my opinion, right? So you're only gonna strike gold if you actually go and try. But most of the time, we find ourselves just tricking ourselves, faking the funk.
We're masters at that.
Yeah, I am for sure.
It's like I'm like a little kid.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, when I'm crying because I'm not doing anything, but then I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like,
Eh,
you know what was that?
Bingo.
And I think discipline
Yeah.
is something that we need to like cultivate within what we're doing, especially as creatives. I
Yeah.
think, you know, I feel there's so many things that we can touch that we would just be fantastic at, right?
Yeah.
So it's like so many things can be a distracting. It's like really just focusing on one thing and pushing through, and that's it. And whether you set like timetables for that, like that's something I'm still learning because I'm very intuitive. Like when I'm feeling like doing something, I'll do it, but it hasn't led to consistency. Right now, I'm dedicating time, I'm dedicating space to that. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going great. I
you
mean,
know?
being able to, we were talking about mingling with the white people. Do you want to get into that? Is that something you want to talk? You just finished
The
politics.
sacrifice.
You want to get into that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we were talking about what I tell a lot of my buddies, right? Which is I use me in digital marketing. So I was able to go and, I'm a guy from the streets. I'm a guy from the projects. I was able to go and mingle with these white people. White people don't get offended. You know
what?
which type I'm talking about.
Thank you for the disclaimer because I love my white people.
I love my white people
but
too.
white people, you guys are like a entity. You know, like
but there's certain white people that hold the cheat code to the game, and they don't want to share the cheat code to the game.
well, sometimes they don't think they have it.
Interesting. Give me more on that.
They just
That's
are
interesting.
like, duh, don't you have it? Like
True.
I never even know there was one. Like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like when like you're oblivious to something, or it's
Yeah.
like white privilege. They don't know they have it.
True.
And
True.
they've been living it. They're just like,
So how do you separate the ones that know they got it? Because there's some that know they got it. There was a lady today. I was at Walmart, and there was a lady behind us at the, how the self checkout. Because nowadays you work for Walmart, you bag your own groceries apparently, which is very strange. But so there's ladies behind us, and we were already paying, and she couldn't wait, and she got mad. She did. I hate to say it, but one of those Karen things where she just like started sucking her teeth really loud. She like whipped her cart around and said a bunch of shit and just walked away. Why? That's white privilege. Like, what's wrong with you?
there's levels to it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think once you get into certain areas, it's different, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like, you are Walmart, so.
Yeah. That's true. Anything goes down in Walmart. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. This isn't Trader Joe's. This is Walmart. That's interesting. But yeah, I tell my buddies that, hey, I was able to go in there. I'm nerdy, techie. I don't really like those words. I'm just.
Nah, it's cool. Own it. I'm a nerd.
But this is the thing. What a nerd really is just somebody that's really curious about a lot of things. Because you're only a nerd if you go down a lot of rabbit holes.
Well, yes, but because of where we come from, you're a nerd because it's
Because
like,
I don't play basketball.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you're really smart, but right now you're a nerd.
You're a nerd, yeah. I think that's, and people are going to hate me for this one, but I think that's a cop-out for people that are not curious to try to hate on you being curious.
Oh, for sure. Like,
Yeah, look at that nerd. And I say, wait a minute.
yeah, like,
I just like shit.
it's basically you just are like being normal and doing
Yeah.
what you should be doing, right?
I guess, but
Because it's so far in between, you end up being a nerd. So I've embraced it. I'm like, fine, I'm a nerd. I'm super curious about so many things. And I think really
that's what it is.
that's why I've been able to get these opportunities because I just want to try everything. I want to understand things. And I'm like, oh, why not me?
I'm going to tell you what, in the few hours that I've been talking to you, I've gotten one thing. You don't seem to get in your own way. Is that fair to say?
Wait, what was that?
You don't get in your own way. Like right now, like
Are
you're telling me getting.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, you get in front of these people. You even said that they had to vote for you and that you would never do it if you didn't know. But this is the thing about that. You would have never done it if you knew. When you found out, you didn't back out. You just kept going with it.
It was too late.
Nah, you could have backed out. No?
Yeah, but it's just like once I say I'm doing something,
Yeah, I would have walked out.
I kind of push through it. I kind of push through it
That's
because
what I mean.
before I do something, I have an intention. So I
Yeah.
went through and I was like, I'm doing this for the kids. So I
Love that.
can't like back
You
out
can't
and then
back
be
out.
like, my feelings.
Yeah,
Because we're not allowed to have feelings.
but you know how many people would have backed out? I would have backed out.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing. So it's like, yeah, you're right. I could. You know what?
You don't get.
I'm
in your
glad I
way.
didn't know that was the option because I was like, that's it. I'm stuck.
Yeah,
I'm stuck.
yeah. But that's because you don't like. I wouldn't say I'm a master at it, but in the past in my life, I've been a master at getting in my own way. Right, so it's like the door's open, run right through that opportunity. Here goes Jose, ready to psych himself out and ready to just start making up these stories and never go through that door and just build an excuse for it. Do the dishes, right? Like in that example.
So I guess we do it in different areas of our lives, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I do it on the most basic level too. Like I doubt all my stuff. I question everything. I don't make decisions.
Yeah,
And it's like I guess I'm making decisions, but to me, like
yeah,
it's not where I want to be. So I guess
yeah.
it's all relative, right?
Interesting,
So
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
there's areas where you're excelling, and I'm like, oh, I can learn a
Gotcha.
thing or two.
Yeah.
Tú me entiendes?
I
So,
do. And I guess that's where the collaboration comes in.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I can't be perfect. I can't do it all.
Yeah. I've tried that. I'm learning that a lot more, especially with this podcast. Like when it shifted over to, it was called the $300 Startup before, and that stuff is still available. But when I shifted over to the Jose Burgos podcast, right, and I was like, look, I just want to network. I just want to talk to people, and I want to have human conversation. That's the direction that I took the show in. I didn't know what it was gonna do. I make no money from this whatsoever, but to me, is like I'm able to bring cool people, conversations, and stories into my house. Right?
And this is great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. But that's something that's my value to give back, right? So I amass an audience and they're loyal. Shout out to you guys. You guys are loyal. And then now I could get creators and I could get people that got really cool stuff. I can entertain my audience, but then I could give these creators a pedestal, right? Give them like a little, I don't know, you come from the streets, so I'm sure you're giving somebody a boost up with both hands or whatever.
Oh, I mean,
Jump a fence real quick.
I mean, you know what? If that makes me a gangster, then that's my
That's
contribution.
That's bullet.
Listen, because everyone knows. So I lived in Plumley.
Yeah.
I just lived there. I just sat in my room and did art all day and
Yeah.
like did sculptures. There'll be fights outside. I'm like, oh my God, they're fighting. Like, why are they fighting? Like,
Pull out your shade.
again, such a little nerd. Like, literally, I'll close my window.
Yeah. I think that was me too.
And they're like, yeah, like, bullet. And I'm just like, oh God, I don't know. I'm in the
Yeah,
Twilight
yeah.
Zone. But it was, I grew up in that environment and
Yeah.
I just like, different perspective. They grew up there. They saw it for what it was. I thought it was like a fantastic place. I came from New York where the projects are much more dangerous or
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
it's just a different environment. So I was oblivious, and I think maybe that's why I'm
You were able
where
to
I am.
focus. Yeah.
I'm very oblivious to a lot of things.
That's a
Like-
good thing, right? Because I'm the same like you, So I grew up in Great Brook Valley. I mean, I did the gangster things. I've sold drugs. I've done all that stuff. But it only took me to get arrested 2 times to figure out this is a pretty crap.
Just the times.
Yeah. Listen, I've been around guys that are still in jail. So, but just it seemed very weird to me when I would look around because I've always been that guy that sees things from a different perspective. When I looked around, that it was like, hey, don't you guys notice that this doesn't work? Like that we're just going to jail every time and then we come out and then we do the same thing. And then, I sucked at basketball, so I couldn't do that, So I tried to rap. I was average at that.
Oh my God, that's so funny that you say that because
Why?
I had this epiphany. It was like, I'm not Lady Gaga. I can't do that. I'm not Beyonce. I definitely can't sing. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do with my life?
Yeah.
Because like you either become like a superstar or like an athlete. I'm
Yeah.
5 feet tall. Like, what am I gonna do?
Right.
So it's like,
You're not doing that at 5 feet.
yeah,
I'm
like,
5'2", so
I'm like, I need to find a thing because
Yeah.
what they've been telling me, the story they've been feeding me,
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening.
it just doesn't make sense. And I feel bad for the people. Like I still know friends that just got trapped in that life and they still go through that. And back to the, going into the white people arena and being
Yeah.
able, my job, I feel if I could get value, and it doesn't need to make me a single dollar ever because thankfully I'm okay in life and I don't need the dollar. But what really gives me a kick is I'm able to get this quote unquote white people information. I'm able to talk to them. I'm able to learn from them. I'm able to speak their language. That advances me. And then I could come back and teach that to, you know, my fellows from the streets, right? If they're Latino, if they're black, it doesn't matter. There's white dudes in the streets that I grew up with. If I can help anybody that just doesn't have the information, right? Because we get trapped behind shitty public schools. We get trapped behind, you know, all those redlining, those neighborhood things, all those jail, all those things that we know that are terrible for our community. And I just started figuring out as I got older, as I bought a house, as I did these things, that they know, white people, don't get mad at me, you know who you are. They know rules to the game that us Latinos or any minority just doesn't have access to.
So,
and you could be right. It doesn't mean that it is on purpose. It doesn't mean that they know and they're trying to purposely do that, but they don't have to, because it's already been set up so where they don't have to do it. The system's already like that. The bank is like that. Like, you could have, you know, Fulanita Susan walk into the bank and ask for $10,000, right? And then Jasmine walks into the bank, asks for $10,000. Susan's going to get that 10. You may get 5. You know, they don't have to do it. It's already built that way.
Is
that fair? I mean, is it just me?
So I think it's like, all that is true.
Okay.
All that is true, right? So I guess what I can say to that is control what you can control, right?
Sure.
So there are all these organizations, there are all these resources. Do your research.
Sure.
Do your research. And, you know, for us, giving back, adding value, we're breaking cycles, right?
Yeah.
So for this generation, don't sit on your butt and wait for opportunities to come to you. Like, do your research. Like, I found these organizations and I saw what they were about, and I'm like, I want to be part of this, you know? So it's like, how do you be proactive in your future, in what you're trying to achieve? Because I think it's like, oh, poor us. Yes, that's been established. Like, systems are against us.
Yeah.
Now what?
Right.
Because we cannot wait for the government. We cannot wait for people to save us. We have to save ourselves, and we have to then save our community. And I think that's really my goal, and your goal as well, that it's like, I want to educate. I want to offer resources. I want to highlight what's in this community, you know, and do it organically. Like,
sure.
And it's just there.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to say that they only target a certain demographic.
Yeah.
But it's what's comfortable for them. And what I'm learning is organizations, they really are convinced they're doing so much for our community. They are, but because it makes them probably uncomfortable, they think they're doing so much.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, unless people who look like me or you are making decisions for our communities, you're never really going to align with what they want. You have to have representation in those panels, decision makers. So I push that forward, like, find positions in the city that you could really add value to your community from a place that you're actually making changes, you know?
Yeah. That's super dope. And let's pause here on that one, and let's check these cameras out. I want to get into a question about that, but I'm going to pause this. Check. We're good?
Yeah. Am I good? How's the volume?
Volume is good.
All
yeah,
right,
I
cool.
could always boost that at the end. Okay,
All
so we're
right.
going. All right, so we took a break there, and I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about, like, working with, you know, a higher crowd, right? Let's not call them white people anymore. Let's just say, you know, the higher crowds in Worcester or whatever. Now, did you feel, like you said, inclusion, did you feel that they naturally wanted to include you because they were curious, or because they felt that they had to include you because they're getting pressure from basically minorities nowadays? Does that make sense? Is that
I don't think when you get to those organizations, there's any pressure in regards to what they need to do. They're pretty open in that regards, as far as, like, their values. So they think.
Okay. Give me more.
So that's the thing. It's like, we talk about, like, systemic racism, and I think that's where the voids are. Those are the gaps that these organizations think they're doing the most, right? It's like, so let's just talk about this. I was part of this organization in Worcester, and there was racial undertones, not necessarily to me, but, like, other individuals there, and then just the conversations in regards to, like, politics and that whole kind of, you know, energy that was going on with that. And I ended up leaving, you know, for those particular reasons. And there was an article written on them in regards to, like, the racism, or, like, just the disconnect that was going on there, you know. And it's just, they were not, even though like it was mentioned,
Yep.
they didn't take it serious because they in their minds they thought they were doing the most.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there's no one in your organization that represents this community.
Yeah.
You how do you think you are like they're convinced they got it. Like
Yeah.
we're making these like decisions for
Right.
the and it's just writing it on a piece of paper doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it. You have
Yeah.
to actively put action behind it and really consider like that demographic and those challenges and how they interact in the space. Like there's etiquette that goes with it, you know? So
Sure.
I don't there's more to it and I don't know if these organizations are prepared for it, but I
Okay.
really hope Worcester is moving forward towards that because it's needed
Yeah.
and we have a diverse community
Absolutely.
and it's to me it's not fair that these organizations are able to just have this type of demographic not be part of it. Like I'm not okay with that. Like I think
Yeah.
if this is a public space, everyone should have access to it, you
Sure.
know?
Sure. Now, how do they take? I don't even know if you can answer this question, but like, so you think, right? They think they're doing the most, right? How do they take when when somebody like you says you're not doing the most? Do they take that well, or do they take it with like, hey, we're doing our best, or do they continue to lean on that, or
They recognize it
okay,
and then they sit on it. For my opinion, they just sit on it and like
yeah,
try to implement certain things, but it has to be a little bit radical. You
okay,
know, I don't think like giving an inch of something it works. You need to flip it.
yeah,
This is not you have to flip it. In
yeah,
order for this to be for everyone, it's not like, oh, we're gonna do this. It doesn't, you know?
yeah,
So I think there's like trainings now in the city that are like,
yeah.
organizations that are really dedicating themselves. I would recommend organizations reach out to them, because
Gotcha.
but let me tell you that there's a really cool art space that opened up the bridge. I don't know if you guys are aware.
No,
Super cool space.
yeah,
It was basically funded around the idea that these organizations were not kind of like aligning with what our community needs as far as creativity. Like there's nothing better that you're in a space with like the right music that gets you there,
yeah,
it
yeah,
gets you in
right,
the zone, or
right.
certain conversations about your it's just a different vibe.
It is
And they're doing great things over there, so
awesome.
shout out to them. And like if anyone's interested about local organizations, like that's a good one to reach out to.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. I think whenever city government or any of these old legacy systems adapt the culture,
Mhm.
I think it's a win-win because people like you and I get opportunities to try and be in places that we never thought,
Mhm.
but they also get the benefit of minorities making everything cool, right? Because if you want a city to thrive, especially with the young people, you need people that are cool,
Mhm.
right? And me and my wife talk about this all the time. The easiest way I can put it, and I hate this is white people have mayonnaise, but we have the sauce. And that's not a diss. It's just a proven fact. It's the thing that Puerto Rican hip hop culture, Puerto Ricans, black people, anybody, they always seem to come into these areas like art and make things cool. Fashion, make it cool. Music, make it cool. Fashion, make it cool, right? And I think the more white people or these higher up people try to fight against that, the worse they look.
The thing is, I don't think well, some people know that they're fighting against it. Some
Yeah,
people think that they're doing what is supposed to be done.
yeah,
But regardless of that, I think we don't make anything cool. We are already cool.
yeah,
And they're sprinkling the accessibility to us, right?
right,
Because it's all about resources.
yeah,
That's really what it comes down to, that these organizations, these positions, it all comes down to resources and being able to have access to things.
yeah,
And even with the Arts Council, we were really pushing for direct funding. We couldn't do it because like the city wasn't prepared. So it's like we're forward thinking, we want to get this money
yeah.
straight to the artist's hands, and we couldn't move forward.
Wow.
So it's like the systems need to get in place to really move these things forward for accessibility like they say they do.
Yeah,
That's why you have to flip it.
yeah,
You can't be like, okay, we're gonna do it. Are you y yo soy presentada and I
yeah.
ask the questions, and they don't like when you have your foot on their neck.
That's what
Because
I mean. Yeah,
it's the truth,
yeah,
and to them it's just like brand new news to them. And I'm
yeah,
just like, when you're the only one speaking up,
yeah,
like I've had to fight battles, like, and I am very vocal about things that make me uncomfortable and things that I don't agree with.
yeah,
And you come off like the crazy Dominican girl, like I can't, and I'm just
yeah,
like, Yeah, but like that thing I was talking about, like you gonna do that?
Yeah.
You know, hasta que se jaltan.
Yeah.
So y- what I've learned is you got to pick your battles,
Yeah.
right? Because you want to make sure that you're not sacrificing all your efforts for a moment of something that you're not going to fix in a moment, right? It's
Right.
like these things take time, and it's just like, I did my part. I served on the council. Hopefully now uh someone gets inspired and they jump on. ¿Tú
Yeah.
me entiendes? Because
Yeah.
it's just like I want us to be in positions of credibility, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know. Things are getting better. Worcester is really cool.
It's gonna be my son.
Nah, it's all. I love it that it's just like.
Yeah. You had the dog in the background. We got all this stuff going on. But yeah.
But even this, like, this is also what we need.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for you,
Yeah.
how would we highlight the
Yeah.
efforts and the contributions that we're doing on a larger scale?
Right.
So it's like these organizations are not highlighting it to the full potential. So it's like, this is how we get to the community.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, there should be more done on that end, but again, how are we being proactive? So
Right.
you're doing your part,
I appreciate it.
and let's inspire, like.
Yeah, trying, because it's just, like you said, journalism in an unprecedented form, because in the day and age that we live in now, you never know who's paying the news, right?
Mhm.
And that's unfortunate. When we were growing up, I think the news was pretty accurate for the most part, but now there's so much money being thrown around that you need people like me, podcasters, that basically say, well, I'm not getting paid. I can say whatever I want. I can talk about whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. And I think more people gravitate towards that news. The easiest example is, and this is out of our culture, but he just has such a big platform, is if you look at what Joe Rogan is doing.
Oh, Mr. Joe Rogan.
Mr. Joe Rogan has probably over 30 million followers.
I have a love-hate relationship with him.
Do you?
I do.
Go ahead, hit me.
Because I love him.
Yeah.
But then all my guy friends like listen to him, and sometimes some ridiculous topic gets talked about. And I'm
Yeah.
like, where's the female perspective on this? I'm like, you guys just get into a room and agree with each other. I'm like, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's accurate.
That is true. But to me, this is what baffles me about Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan is, meathead, quote unquote, this. He just, whatever, mixed martial artist, all that. But what people don't get about Joe Rogan, if they don't listen to his show, is that he can talk to anybody. He can talk to the smartest people in the world, the dumbest people in the world, people that are wrong, people that are right. And that's journalism.
Exactly.
Because I can listen to 3 hours of Joe Rogan and get some truth because he has no biases.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I go over to CNN, they've been paid off by whatever, the political left or the political right. And now I'm getting skewed information. So to me, podcasting is that 2.0 engine that, broadcasting or the newspaper was for our parents, right?
I agree. And I feel like media is not even remotely close to.
Right.
It's not informative anymore.
No.
It's literally spewing lies. I mean, at a young age, I knew the news was trash.
Yeah.
I used to come home from school and my mom would be crying in front of Univision, like, ay. And I'm like, what is this? What are you watching? Like, you just watch this for an hour and you just cry. I was like,
yeah.
And then I watched, I'm like, this person died. This person died.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
this is awful.
Yeah.
Nothing positive. I was like, yeah. So now, during the pandemic, she stopped watching it. And she's like, you've been telling me this for years and I never listened to you. She's like, I've never been happier during the pandemic.
Yeah.
She goes, I've never been happier because I'm not exposed to all this negativity all day.
Right. I don't think we're built for that, especially our parents. They weren't built for that. I think what made our childhood so peaceful is that we knew nothing about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it didn't happen on our block or it didn't happen on our neighborhood, we were just living our best lives and going about it. And now it's like you can't even wake up without seeing the worst thing of all time or the scariest thing of all time or this fear-mongering, like this COVID situation, which is, listen, you can try to protect the people as much as you can, but what really lost me during this whole COVID is they gave no responsibility to the individual. So it was like, go ahead and hide everybody instead of, hey, we trust you. If you believe you're healthy and you have a business, you should be able to run this. If you're not, you should stay home. Everybody had to stay home. That's what rubbed me off the wrong way.
So initially, it's a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I know we're jumping all over the place, but
No.
go ahead.
No. I mean, how do you have a conversation when not talking about COVID?
Exactly.
Right?
But we went from what's the arts concert to. Go ahead.
No, it all connects, right? No, It's just right? They handled it the way that they handled it initially, but now it's just messy. And I think that's
Yeah.
where the confusion comes because to me, yes, do I think it's real in regards to like you should stay safe because some people,
Yeah.
got it, they got sick, some people died, but it's just like I was just came back from Miami. It's
Yeah.
pretty open. Texas is open.
Texas is over.
Massachusetts has restrictions and it's just like all over the place. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's confusion in the news. So it's just like, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Do what you can but like they just are feeding you misinformation all day.
Yep.
And it's just, we're not prepared for this.
Yeah.
It's like you have no viable source. You have nowhere to turn. So I just think people need to really start realizing that you can't rely on the government. And I don't know if that's the terrible thing for me to say, but it's just nothing. I don't want to say awful things because I don't know any truths. But from my experience, they haven't really done anything to benefit anything in my life rather than pretend that they're here for us, So I think especially our community, that's you kind of grew up around that idea that it's just like you bank on the government, like they know the best, they make the decisions, and it's not the case. It's not the case.
Yeah. And it took for me to get older to realize that.
Yeah, you get educated, right? You start reading a book or two and you're like, hold on a second.
Sometimes it's not about education. Sometimes you just see the bullshit. It's like, but wait a minute, this doesn't make any damn sense.
But not everybody sees it.
True, but like I started getting into. I'm not into politics, so by me saying I got into politics doesn't mean like I went down a rabbit hole. But I started being more aware about Massachusetts specifically, and I got a buddy he's a big fan. He listens all the time. He moved to Pennsylvania from Massachusetts, and he kept telling me, "Dude, get out of there, like get." And I'm just like, "What you talking about, dude?" Like
from where, Worcester?
From Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the whole.
I mean, everyone told me that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, man, look, like, what are you talking about? And what he was basically telling me is like, look, that's a liberal state, and I've heard of the word liberal at the time, but he was like, that's a liberal state. That's a place where, they're basically gonna milk you at the expense of being able to take care of somebody else. That still didn't do nothing to me. I was like, yeah, whatever, man. I pay my taxes. I like, I like being that guy, whatever. I bought a house. And boy, listen, the dude walked into the basement. And we got some stuff done to the basement and all that stuff. And he was just walking around. And I kid you not, Jasmine. He was just pointing at stuff. Oh, that right there, you need a tag for that, $500. Oh, this one right here, $300 for that, and it needs to pass inspection. Oh, this right here. By the time he walked out of the house, he charged up like close to $2,000 in inspection tickets.
No, thank you.
Wait a minute. So I was like, how can you do this? And he's like, well, those are our codes that you need for your house to pass in Massachusetts. I was like, damn, I broke off the money. As soon as I closed on the house, it just happened to be in the beginning of the year. Car taxes came in. But before my W-2 came in, my car taxes came in. We have a dog. Dog taxes came in. Listen, and then my buddy starts to come back into my head. Dude, get out of there. Then I bump into my dad, and my dad is like, yo, taxation is theft. They're killing you right now. They're destroying your whole savings. Like, you need to get out of here.
So where are we going? Where are we going?
I guess Texas it is. Well, anywhere where it's not quote unquote liberal. So not a blue state, a red state. And I guess what I'm learning is that's actually more real than what I thought it was. I thought that was just like political people just pointing each other out. You red, you blue.
Interesting. A red state.
Yeah, so Republican states seems to have lower taxes. They seem to have a better basically. I hate to say that because I like the welfare systems and the resources that are in Worcester, but basically they're not so keen on taxing high so that they could give people food stamps and things like that. So they may have less resources, but their community is more of a hardworking community because they're like middle collar, right? In these red states, and in here, you could bust your butt working 16 hours a day. And they're just gonna hire the taxes so that they could buy a baseball park to put it in or whatever.
I mean,
and other things like license to carry, right? Second Amendment.
Yes.
I recently just got my license to carry, and if I were to tell you, they're gonna say it's because of COVID, but I promise you, it's because it's Massachusetts. They made me go through hoops, loops, time, payments, fees. I paid so much. I started in June of 2020. I didn't get my license to carry till January of 2021.
But I'm okay with that.
Why?
For so many reasons. First of all, I'm scared of guns.
Okay.
Right? So
fair, by the way.
My brother lives in Florida. He has a license to carry, and I just feel like it's like loose over there. It's
Okay.
more like an accepted thing. So here it's just like, yeah, go through a million hoops and pay a million taxes.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I mean, I don't know if it's worth having doing it the legal way rather than
Yeah.
just having a fire on my house. Does that lead to that? Because at the end of the day, you want to protect yourself.
Sure.
And if you're not able to go through all these steps, like, when do you say, hey,
Well,
I'm from the streets anyway, so.
well, the problem with the street method is that you go away for a long time if you haven't happened to use that. But you're right. But my thing is this: is that I'm cool with going through some hoops. I think every state, even the red states, make you go through some type of application, and you would have to, because there's a federal system that keeps track of serial numbers for guns and things like that. So that's fine. My thing is this: my thing is that at what point does the amendment matter? Because if it's mine to begin with, because I pay taxes, because I have a birth certificate here, because I'm a citizen of this country, if it's already mine, I should be able to just go get a gun whenever I want. It's already mine. So I'm okay with you doing something which you can't do, which is getting in the way of my amendment. You're already doing that. But it shouldn't take you 6 months for me to get closer to my amendment, right?
Do you think I've never been through that process, and
Sure.
I can assume that timeline is a little ridiculous, right? But
Yeah.
it's also checks and balances, I say. I don't know,
Yeah.
because my thing
Sure.
is, do I want to live in a red state
Yeah.
considering what's been happening? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, would I rather just wait the 6 months? Would I
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
pay more taxes
Yeah.
and not have to deal with red state?
Don't pay more taxes. You had me until this. Don't listen. You should never. No state, red, blue, yellow, whatever color. Taxation is stuff.
But my question
You're
to you
stealing
is,
from us. Yep.
and I am, like, I don't even know why I'm talking about taxes. I'm the worst when it comes to all this
Yeah.
stuff. But it's a wealthy state. So does it even itself out? Because the taxes must not be too much of an issue, or do you need to be in a certain tax bracket? Is that
Yeah,
for
tax
it to
bracket.
make
Tax bracket, right? So the more the white people are gonna kill me in this episode.
Sorry,
Listen,
white people.
Yeah, you got two Spanish people here. Sorry, but basically, all right, let's not say white people. What rich people?
Right. Because why are we even doing this?
Yeah, because there's Spanish people, Puerto Ricans that are rich. Not too many, by the way, but they're up there.
I know plenty.
Yeah, well, put me on because I don't know anything. But what rich people seem to know is that they have the loopholes to not pay the taxes. So when you go to a rich person that knows how to handle money, they're always going to tell you like, oh, listen, taxes are not a problem. They can keep going up. Why? Because they know how to not pay taxes or pay very little taxes. On the other hand, the people like you and I, right, the minorities, the average blue collar, the 9-to-5ers, if you want to call us that, right, we don't know the tricks that they do. So when the taxes go up, we have to race, right? Because my job isn't going to say, oh, inflation is up 10% because of COVID. Well, here's the 10% raise, right? So that's the problem, is the lack of information in the financial spaces. But taxation is theft, because what kind of system do we live in where I pay thousands of dollars in taxes and have no opinion, no decision, no vote whatsoever on what that money gets used for? If I wanted to go to food stamps, right, for other people, why can't I say so? Hey, put 100% of my proceeds to the food stamp program.
I always thought about that.
Yeah.
I wish I knew where my taxes in particular were going to.
Everybody.
But I never, honestly, it's not something, I haven't bought a house. So maybe
Yeah.
this is why I haven't thought so much about taxes.
Yeah.
I tried, I feel like being an adult is still a trick. So
Yeah, it definitely
I'm still
is.
trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. It just becomes weird. Like, when I was younger and none of this stuff was irrelevant, I would ignore people like my buddy who was like, hey, man, But now as I get older, once again, it's taxation of stuff. And then you have the stimulus that's going around. And the problem is that people, minorities and people, Spanish community, I was talking about this earlier. So the problem is that, everybody's excited about, $1,400 or whatever. Little do they know that if they were to break down every single household and the 1.9 trillion, everybody's supposed to be getting about $14,000 if you break households down per 1.9 trillion. So the fact that everybody's only getting $1,400 makes you wonder, where the hell is the rest of this money going?
The alien missions.
The lizard people, the lizards.
They're already here.
Yeah, I'm over here getting serious. Perfect. That's it. But that's awesome. But the problem is that we get screwed because, I have kids and, it may not affect me for say it's already affected me, but right now my kids pay $8 for a Big Mac meal. By the time they get to my age, they're gonna be paying $16, $20 for
Hmm.
that same exact meal.
That's why we gotta get on that other tax bracket.
That's why we need to
Ooh.
know their tricks, their loopholes.
I mean, you're on it.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
getting there. You're on your way. So
But
let
I'm
me know.
34. Look how long it took me.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, 34 years young.
Yeah, I'm with you. But that's the problem. And anybody who's listening, listen, learn. I'm not gonna use white people. I promise. I'm gonna try rich people games. Learn rich people games, and rich people defer taxes because they put their money in hard assets,
Hmm.
and hard assets basically make them money while they sleep. So I don't know if you ever wondered. Jay-Z even did this. So let's not even talk about white people. There's a verse or a lyric in where Jay-Z says, "Hey, I bought this artwork for 2 million. 2 years later it's gonna be worth 4 million.
Mm-hmm.
3 years later it's gonna be 10 million. I can't wait to give this to my children." That's what rich people do. They don't do what you and I do and say, "Hey, let me go put some money in a bank account and save." They say, "No, let me go put this in something rare that's gonna gain value while I sleep, and that eventually I'm gonna give it to my children."
Of course, but you have
They
to.
don't pay taxes on that.
Yeah, but you know what it is. You have to be aware that that's even an option, right?
That's my thing.
It's just learning about money,
Right.
like how it works,
Yeah.
learning the rules.
Right.
There's so much to money. There's so much to taxes, these loopholes, and just being able to expose yourself. But all that information is out there.
Yeah.
It's just we just feel that we're not like this is we don't deserve this
Yeah,
lifestyle. And
yeah.
I'm all about like once you get to a certain place and you know better, you do better, you learn, you
Yeah.
move forward. I'm still learning because as I'm trying to do this, I'm having conversations with my mom that make no sense.
Yeah.
But it's like they teach us what from their capabilities,
Right.
right? And it's just like we're years behind.
Yeah, we are.
I'm
Absolutely.
first generation immigrant. My mom's first generation immigrant. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like I've done pretty well for myself considering that,
agree, yeah.
she still doesn't speak English.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right. And they still made it. That's the thing.
yeah, exactly. So it's just, what can you do, right? What can you
Yeah.
do at this point? But really just get out there and educate.
Right.
I think with your platform and your knowledge in
Yeah.
regards to taxes and
I don't know shit. I just know how to not pay.
yeah, but that's enough. That's
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah.
You've gotten to a place in your life that it's like now you're exposed to this
Yeah.
information. You wish you could have done it sooner, I'm sure,
Right.
but now
Right.
you're setting your kids up
Right.
to
Right.
understand that information. I think we don't give like ourselves enough credit for those moments.
Yeah.
That it's just like it takes one person to save one person, and then
Right.
it's just gonna be a long journey.
Right.
'Cause
But
we
that's
love-
why I don't like that geek word though, because I only learned this information because I was curious.
Yeah, that's
Right,
what
so
we're gonna call it curious.
Yeah, see, yeah. Because if I say it's geek, people are gonna disclaim it, right? Because I've seen buddy of mine that are like, not geeks or whatever. And when I start saying something like that about taxes and money, I can literally see them just shut off in their head. Like they're just like, and it's like,
But this is why you're a nerd. So it's
Yeah.
like you're not a nerd if you're
curious. We're
having
going with curious.
so no. So you are curious
Yeah.
depending on who you're around.
Yeah. What do you mean? Give me more.
So it's like if you're in a room of your homies who are not interested in any of this stuff, and you
Okay.
start talking about these topics that they do not care,
Yeah.
you're a nerd because it's like these are elevated
Yeah.
topics, right? Like
Right.
that we don't even consider having in conversation at the cookout, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But if you're with people who are entrepreneurs or
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
into investment, now you're just having casual conversation.
Right.
And it's just being comfortable in whatever space that you're in. So it's like, I told you, I embrace the word nerd, but really I'm just curious and I want to know things and I want to be in the right place or like be in rooms with that I'm not the smartest person and I'm
Right.
learning,
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite room to be in. I just absorb information. Sometimes to a downfall. Like I won't take any action because I'm absorbing so much. But it's just that. That's it. If you're gonna be the person that shuts off because you're not interested, I understand that. But please don't be the same. Like that's something I always tell my wife. Like when my friends, the ones that don't want to, follow the good things, the good examples that I place and all that. My thing is, please don't ever be the person that says, "Yo, Jose got that. How come he didn't let me know about that?" You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be that person.
Well,
Like,
you're gonna be that person.
What do you mean? I try to put on everybody.
You
I
can't,
don't want to be that person.
but you can't. It doesn't work
Right.
that way.
So don't be that person. Is all I ask. That's my ask.
They're gonna be that person. So you're being selfish.
Right? Hit me. Please school me.
So the reality is, it's just like this is why you can't have certain conversations around certain people because what ends up happening is like now you become a reflection
Yeah.
of the things that they haven't been able to do. And it's nothing
Okay.
personal. It's just that's kind of how it's taken.
Yeah.
So yes, you're gonna give back, do whatever you want, but those people are still gonna exist, you know. So I
Yeah.
think you need to get to a space and feel comfortable. Like, I can't be in the same place, you
Yeah.
know. It's just like, I'm here if you need anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just like, you can't keep bending down to pick someone up
Yeah.
if they're not trying to follow, if they're not really like passionate about it, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like, I'm all about teaching, I'm all about that, but I'm interested in people who are interested in what I have to teach. If I have to like convince someone
Yeah.
to do this, we're both gonna struggle.
That's a good point.
You know, so it's like
Absolutely.
feeling comfortable in your progression and your how you're evolving,
Yeah.
and that's gonna happen. And it's gonna be more than that, like social media, people
yeah.
talking crap
For sure.
and whatever. Like me, I don't like, not really active in social media, so
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't really affect me. But like, I don't know if it would have anyways,
Yeah.
because I just do things for myself.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm
No.
bored and I have nothing else to do, so I'm just gonna do this stuff.
No, I get stirred very easily. That's why I had to leave social media. And it wasn't that what anybody was doing to me personally, right? Like, it wasn't like people were taking shots at me or anything. It was just like my brain races a lot, right? And I tried to, just for an easy example, rescue people, right? So to me, it's like, I see that person struggling so much, and I have the information that would help them. But boy, do they not want that information.
Oh my God, listen.
And that sucks to me. I feel bad. It's like a genuinely like, damn it.
No, and that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. That means you have empathy and compassion for
I try.
people,
Yeah.
but you really cannot save them all.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and it's unfortunate
Yeah,
because sometimes you see the potential in people,
yeah.
but it's like, again, getting comfortable with like, hey,
You gotta go.
y-
Yeah.
y- like you got to
Yeah.
keep it moving for you and your family. You have your own responsibilities,
right.
you know. So
Yeah.
like, I feel like I did that for a little bit. So it's like, I'll do this things like, oh, you didn't tell me about it. I'm like, I told you once.
Yeah,
You,
you weren't
you didn't
interested.
say anything, so it's like, I just got to keep
Right,
it
right.
moving. So
I gotta get to that point for sure. I still
Mhm.
haven't got to that limit point where I like financial information or Bitcoin is one of those things that I've been in lately, and more than your average person. So I've gone down the rabbit hole like deep. I've talked, seen the technology side, seen the philosophy
Mhm.
side, and to me, this is being able to buy the internet before it turned into the internet. Like, I wasn't old enough to buy Disney, right? The stock, Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense to you, or buy Apple when Apple
Mhm.
was $1, right? Our parents were able to do that, and my parents just weren't savvy enough to figure that out, right? So my whole life I've been doing the rat race thing. I'm sure you've been doing the rat
Mhm.
race thing, but what nobody ever told us is that we need to find the Disney, because this rat race thing, back to taxes. I know that like, this whole episode should be called taxes, but the problem is that what they're not explaining to us is that we'll never be able to fight over the taxation. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, literally by design across the Fed,
Mhm.
right, across the government. So you and I will continue to work, continue to put money away. It's 401k, savings, you name it, right? This money melts away, and it melts away by decisions being made by people that are not our flavor
Mhm.
and don't care for our flavor,
Mhm.
right? So Jasmine works 10 years and puts away $50,000, right? Jasmine thinks she's going to retire with $50,000. Now the number is going to say $50,000, but because of the Fed and because of all these people that don't care about Jasmine, when she gets to that money, it's now has the buying power of $20,000. And then Jasmine is curious and wondering, but why the hell? Y'all told me to do a 401k. That's
Mhm.
what you told me to do. The problem is that they told you to do that because you're paying for somebody else's food stamps, not the rich guy, right?
Mhm.
And that's my thing, is that a lot of people, especially Bitcoin was my point, is that that's our last chance to be able to jump on something and let money make money for us so that we could focus on being creative. We could focus the things we want to focus on. Now, that's a long story for me to basically say is, back to the point, I see so much people that are fighting to pay their bills. I see so much people that are desperate for these $1,400. And if I could just give them one little piece of information that could change their life, I want to do that. And you're right, they don't want to listen.
I'm gonna go chill with my homies with my $1,400.
I can't. Yeah, right.
I mean, come on.
But then once again, don't be. If you're my friend, don't be the friend that says Jose never told me or put me on, right?
So okay, so what would you tell somebody to do with their $1,400?
Buy Bitcoin,
Really?
all of it.
Really?
Yeah. I've gone down this thing. Yeah, I have.
Is this sponsored ad?
No, this is the cameras are not even on. I don't know why I keep looking at the camera, but. But this is not financial advice. I do another podcast with my brother-in-law called Talking in Bits, and we talk about like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But aside from that, I got tired of it in October when my wife and I kept getting to this threshold, right? We just bought a house and we're good and all that. But we kept savings wise, we kept getting to this point, and we got 4 kids. So we were kind of on the low end. We got to this point where it was like every time we would get to $2,000, something would happen where it's like we needed it.
The emergency fund.
Right. But they say what, keep 3 to 4 months. $2,000 is like a month in this house, right? So we were having a hard time doing it. So right there I started figuring out, but why the hell? Why are there people my age that are not having this problem? Why are there people is it really that much better than me? Is it really? And what it came down to is what they were doing with their money. They weren't just putting it in a savings account. Because Capital One, and I hate Capital One, that's why I'm Capital One specifically was giving me 0.5% on my savings, right? These crypto banks that are literally the same thing, just crypto, are giving me 8.9% on my money. So now you go to a person that's working a 9 to 5 where inflation is killing their money, and you say, hey, put your money here with me, and I'll make it work for you. And you could go to sleep and all that, right? And
so why do you think people are not taking advantage of that? Sounds so amazing.
I think that's why. I think we're, and I'm actually, this is the first time I talk about it. I'm already working on my second book. And my second book is basically somewhere along the lines, title-wise, of dedicated to a generation that just doesn't know, right? And this is one of those things that you need to invest, you need to have trust. And I don't want to speak for you, but I will speak for me and what I grew up around. Trust is not something you do. You don't trust the police.
I have trust issues.
I have trust issues. Yeah, right. So you don't trust other people around you. You don't trust, the police. You don't trust, you don't even trust the hospital sometimes, right?
Wow, this is interesting because I was thinking about that today. I'm like, I wonder if my trust issues is holding me back from financial freedom.
Yes, right.
Interesting.
So we're whatever, if it's programmed or if it's by accident, that's a different conversation, but we are basically geared to not trust anything around us. And investing is gambling, right? So if you don't trust yourself and the moves that you're making, you're going to fail every time. They call it wrecked. Like, you're going to get wrecked every time, right?
Sounds about right.
So what Bitcoin provides to us is the ability to get digital gold. And my parents didn't do much gold, but if you listen to anybody our parents' age talk about gold, they talk about storage of value, right?
Yes, like gold is like an asset that doesn't lose value pretty much, right?
Correct, because of scarcity. Because you can print as much dollars as you can, as we see, and that debases the currency. But in theory, you can only mine so much gold. Okay. So it's a scarce metal. So that makes it valuable. So the person that has it, is accruing value as they have it, right? But there's problems with gold, right? So imagine Jasmine had a room full of gold and she wanted to send it to Jose, but Jose lives in Florida. So now you got to get a truck, right? Now you got to load the truck. Now you got to hire a few guys with guns, right? Some security for this thing, right? Now you got to spend the gasoline to get this, right? And then it may not even make it safe and you could lose it all, right? So Bitcoin has solved all those tangible problems by basically making gold that's like an email that I could just shoot to you in a second, that I could send to you immediately. And this is the beauty. I don't need to know your name. I don't need to know your bank account information. And it happens instantaneously. Go ahead. You have a question?
So the value of gold comes from its scarcity, right?
Correct.
So where does the value from Bitcoin come from?
I'm glad you asked. This is the awesome value and the reason why it's better than gold. So in theory, we don't know how much gold we can mine, right? They say it's running low. But how do you know, right? Like, we could just keep digging and getting better at it and finding more. And there's even been proof that, the small pieces of asteroids that land on the planet carry rare minerals, but like rare metals, gold and stuff like that. So is gold really scarce, right? Bitcoin, mathematically, programmatically, and can't be altered. There will only ever be 21 million that ever exist. And nobody can change this number. This is already set in the code. It's an open peer-to-peer network. So anybody who tries to alter that basically just gets kicked out of the club. Like, nah, y'all over here playing foul. Get out of here, right? And then we go back to business because it's a consensus thing, right? So if there's 10,000 computers that are, that have copies of the ledger, which is all the transactions, how much Jasmine's worth, how much Jose's worth, then one person can't fuck around because we just throw them out the club and everybody else keeps partying, right? That's the strength of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is scarce to a math. We know. So the whole supply and demand thing, the more people buy, the less they are available, and the more desperate people get to own this rare commodity. And then remember, it's valuable because it does gold better than gold, right? It does the scarcity, it does all that stuff. And we're heading into a generation that's going to be all digital anyways. This is going to be their currency.
So question for you. You mentioned that our community sometimes doesn't find the apple, right? We were too young to find the apple. Correct. So we should be looking for the apple in those. So being that Bitcoin has been around for some time now, is there another cryptocurrency that maybe is the Apple, and we're just now stuck on this, or
Yeah, that's a huge debate. There's a gazillion cryptocurrencies now.
oh, there is.
Yeah, there's Ethereum, there's Litecoin, I mean, literally, there's like even 15, 20 that I can even think about, probably more than that. And new ones come out every day,
Okay.
right? What makes Bitcoin so different is the problem that it aims to solve. So this is really cool. Long story short, the anonymous person who invented Bitcoin is not even an entity, right? So there's a person called Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody knows who it is. So people assume that this is a group of people that just went under the alias.
And you want me to trust this?
What? Check this out though. Check this out though. What he did was in 2009, they're similar to what's happening now, where the banks were paying out, where the Fed was basically like saving the banks and doing it and covering all their BS or whatever. So he dropped the white papers for Bitcoin, and what white papers are, if you don't know, is just basically the blueprint. This is the program. This is like the scientific paperwork that proves that this worked. He left it anonymously and told the world, hey, this is a peer-to-peer payment network that's going to solve what's happening with the banks. And what's happening with the banks, and history will tell you this. I'm a big history buff. History will tell you this. What's happening with the banks is that they have a double spend problem. And what a double spend problem is for the bank is that they tell me to leave $1,000 in savings, right? But then Jasmine walks in behind me and says, hey, I need a loan for $1,000. They take my $1,000, give them to you, but whenever I check my account, it still says $1,000. So in theory, they just made up an extra 1,000 that didn't exist before that.
Yeah.
That's a double spend problem. So they're just making money up over and over. And in history, the most famous example, Rome being the most famous. Rome was an empire that lasted 700 years. And if you were to do your research and ask anybody who knows about Rome, what was it that killed that empire? Why did it go under? The very first thing they're going to tell you, they debased the currency. So the Emperor Nero was getting gold coins, and he was putting silver inside of them and coating them in gold. Basically make them not real gold, like a fool's gold. And he was trying to fool the people, and the people were like, hey, this 1 gram of gold is not even gold. So he was debasing the currency. What the government is doing right now with these stimulus checks is debasing our currency. They're printing money to inflation. They're just making this up, and there's nothing to back it, right? And the thing that Bitcoin solves that no other coin solves is scarcity in gold. And it does it in a peer-to-peer, decentralized fashion. So there's no government. There's no company that owns Bitcoin. There's no one. Satoshi we don't know who that person is. There's no one entity. The network is open and secured by us, the people that adopt it, and by the miners, which are the people that put our transactions on the blockchain. This is like a crazy conversation.
So does it function like gold in regards to like the way that you can use it? Because in order to cash that in, there's a process. Is it accessible like cash that you can shop with Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Is it like stock that like how does it work?
It's more like gold right now at the storage of value level,
Okay.
right? So this is one of those things where it's like you want to have it, and then that's your net worth. We talked about net worth a little while ago, right? So right now, Bitcoin is at $60,000, which is amazing in itself. By the way, it's only 12 years old. It's such a young system network, but it's up as anybody who bought in at $19,000 is doing fantastic right now.
So
right?
how much is it right now?
It's at 60 grand right now.
1 Bitcoin?
1 Bitcoin.
You better add up those $1,400 checks to see.
No, but this is the thing. This is what I like. This is the education that my people need to know. So just like, let's use the gold bar for an example, right? So I go to Jasmine. I'm like, yo, Jasmine, I can't afford that whole gold bar, but why don't you just give me a few nuggets, right? And I'll give you whatever you think it's worth those nuggets.
Let me get some nuggets, yeah.
So these things are called Satoshis, right? So you can go on Cash App, or you can go on a lot of these things, and you could just buy $1 worth, $5 worth, and they give you Satoshis. And you think about these Satoshis as little gold nuggets. And if the whole gold bar continues to increase in value, $60,000, your little gold pieces also continue to grow in value.
Can you add enough of those up and make
100 million Satoshis equals 1 Bitcoin.
Okay.
It sounds like a lot. I know it does. But think about all the BS that you buy, right? And then now, because Bitcoin is reaching its adoption phase, there's a bunch of visas that give you Satoshis as cashback. So you could just like do your normal stuff and get paid Satoshis back. I went, before you came, I was at Red Robin in Millbury with my wife and the kids. I swiped my Cash App card and I got $5 in Bitcoin back. So you don't.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, right. So now what I try to tell, the reason this is the Apple of my generation is because since you can buy it for $1 and that can infinitely inflate as the price goes up, this thing is supposed to go 10 trillion and there's only at a trillion right now. So a good comparison that people say is if you had a chance to buy a piece of Manhattan before it was Manhattan, would you do it?
Of course.
This is your chance. So you buy as much Bitcoin as you can now because there's going to be Manhattan. There's going to be 10 trillion and you have your piece of Manhattan. And there's clever ways for you to store it. Like you could take it off of Cash App and put it on like a little USB drive and it's off the internet. So you can't be beat for it.
I was just going to ask you, what happens if the internet just disappears? Where does your little Bitcoin go?
They would, since it's peer-to-peer, node-wise, right? So it's a global network, right? So they would not only, I mean like the Fed, if they really wanted to mess around, they would not only have to knock down electricity all over the globe, they would have to knock out the internet all over the globe. And they would have to do that for a long time. Not a day, not two, right? That's nearly impossible. And then guys are so slick that they're even figuring out ways to send transactions over radio broadcast. So they could do that and you can still get a transaction. This is crazy. Trust me. And it's safe. I could go on forever. I have a whole show dedicated on it because of that.
I mean, I'm not interested in stocks. That's for sure. So
this is not a stock.
This sounds way more interesting. It's an investment.
Exactly.
Maybe you should get paid for this ad.
No, because my value is in trying to help people out. I'm telling you, like, I don't need anything in return besides, check this out. Imagine, like, I have this information and this is all great and I'm going to be rich or whatever. First of all, I don't do it for money. This is something that my co-host and I always go back and forth with. I'm a hippie in this situation where it's like, nah, I want to give this to my kids. Like, I just want to hold on to this forever. Like, I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I'm not letting it go because to me we're already at a point where you can use your Bitcoin as collateral. So why am I going to sell my Bitcoin when it's going to go 10x when I could just say, hey, whatever company, I have Bitcoin, $100,000 worth. I need $50,000 loan. Let's use that as collateral.
You can use it as collateral at banks at this moment in time?
Not Fed banks, but there's crypto banks. Like there's one off my head that we talk about all the time, BlockFi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's BlockFi and stuff like that. So we're getting into adoption phase where Visa cards now give you Bitcoin back. Banks are doing collateral loans, right? So now the Fed is in a position where they continue to print money and smart people with finance information are trying to figure out, well, where the hell do I put my money so it doesn't melt? Because if there's one thing we know about inflation is it melts our money. That's why the McDonald's hamburger is now $8. And when we were growing up, it was $2, right? So what happened with COVID is they could say it was for the people and they had to print this money to help a bunch of people. I'm not doubting that at all. I don't want to shit on the Fed's narrative. But this one thing for sure, when you make up money, you debase the currency, it gets more expensive for us middle-class people to live. Rich people don't worry about it because they got the tax loops. But my job is not going to give me a 10% hike. COVID advanced us in inflation-wise numbers 10 years into the future. So the inflation we would have saw over 10 years, which is more comfortable because then over time we could start making more money. We saw that instantly. Yeah. When the first stimulus came out, back in March, right? And here we are 2 stimuluses later, and it doesn't look like they're showing any sign of stopping, right? I've even heard that in June they're going to give child tax credits out to people who didn't get it this year. So they're just printing money left and right. And you and I are only getting $1,400, but the stock market is getting bailed out. So the rest of that money is going to bail out these Amazons, these other companies, because they've made it illegal for companies to fail. And what I mean by that is, might be ranting along, but the Fed has a portfolio in the stock market. You would think the government shouldn't be playing in stocks. Why are you playing stocks? You're the federal government. They have a portfolio that they have to maintain. Every time the stock market starts to do this, guess who comes and saves the day?
I see. Yep.
And then they hide it in like, oh, no, but this is for the people. So we need to print this money. But what happens when the majority of the people, like how you and I grew up, are miseducated about finances? We go into Walmart. We buy the flat screen TV. We hook up our cars. We buy chains. Some of us even buy chains and stuff like that, right?
It's just that the dream seems so far, you know?
If you don't know their games. It seems like you're playing Uno, right, with the government.
Yeah.
And then every time you pull a draw 4, they say, nah, you draw 4. I only draw 2. Okay. So now my job is, and you kind of hinted at this earlier, is let me figure out how to draw 2 so I can show my people how to draw 2. Because you cheating. I'm drawing 4, you drawing 2. That's how it feels. But we can circle around the Bitcoin thing. But that's where Bitcoin does that other coins can't do, because other coins are not limited supply. So these other cryptocurrencies, they could print like the federal dollar. They could just make as many of them. No scarcity.
Yeah.
And the network that governs Bitcoin, right? The protocols, the security, the encryption, the blockchain, and the fact that everybody that's involved with the system that has a node has a copy of the ledger.
Mm-hmm.
So think about your local bank. You don't know what the hell's going on. Like, you don't know where your transaction is going. You can't see their ledger, and there's only one.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody hacks that bank, see you later, money, right? Bitcoin is everybody has a copy of the ledger.
Mm-hmm.
I run a node in my house upstairs. It's like a little computer. I have a copy of the full Bitcoin ledger. So what that does is whenever I buy Bitcoin, I could verify myself that I own this and it's not falsified.
Mm-hmm.
When I put my money in the bank, I don't verify anything, right? And in history, in 2009, when Bitcoin was made, there's a story about in Italy. I believe it was Cyprus. I think that's in Italy. Well, the people woke up and the bank had a long, like, the Monday holidays, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had a long weekend. And the people were standing outside the bank on Tuesday. And they were like, hey, the bank's not open. What's going on? There was a sign saying, hey, we're going to be closed for the rest of the week. The people finally got somebody. They got the manager out or whatever. And the manager literally had to tell them, hey, the government told us that we need to take 20% from all of your accounts to be able to pay back the debt that we owe them. So imagine, Jasmine, you work 10 years in a little bread business or whatever, a little bakery, and you build up a life savings of $80,000. And just because you woke up one day, you were stripped 20% of that, your life savings. You had no control of it. They can't do that with Bitcoin.
So
they can't take it from you.
So what would you tell someone who's skeptical like me?
I get to know people like me. But I got like books, articles. Like, I would ask you first, how do you learn? Right, that would be my thing. Do you learn videos? Do you learn by reading? I'm a big reader, but I got a bunch of resources. They call it the orange pill. Go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Figure out what money is. I don't think people know.
That's the key.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Yeah. Because when you figure now with even my wife, she's transitioned, if you call it that. We literally talk about money like it's dirt. Like, we call it fiat in this house.
To me, it's power. And I've never called it power, but I'm even, talking to a lot of my friends, I'm starting to realize unless there's financial backing behind anything, it's not credible.
Right.
So it's like learning about money. How can, this is interesting.
Yeah, well, check it out. What we need to learn about money is we give it power, right? So all currency, any money in the world in the beginning of history, seashells, rice, grain, Indians traded corn, right? This stuff was scarce, right? Until it became not scarce. And then people were like, the group as a collective decided that's not valuable anymore, right? Like, when people were coming around with seashells, it only took for one dude to find that there was another beach up the street that could get more seashells before the seashell was just devalued. It was like, well, we don't want that. Let's move on to the next best thing, right? And then we did rice, we did grains, right? So what we think of money is not money. We give it the power because the world, consensus-wise, says that it's worth. If I give you $50, it's a certificate that you say, oh, I got $50 for my work. Money is really time and energy.
Yeah.
Right? So now, when you realize what the federal government is doing to the dollar and that there's no scarcity and that there's nothing backing it besides the U.S. military, because that's the only thing that backs the U.S. dollar. We left the gold standard in 1970, which is when the bank said, hey, you guys, that gold is very heavy and very cumbersome. You give it to us, we'll hold it for you, and we'll give you this certificate in exchange that says you have this much gold value to trade. Because remember, I can't buy a cup of coffee with a gold bar.
Yeah.
Right? So I needed the bank to give me a certificate that says, oh, I'm worth this money, and this is my proof.
So do you think this falls under like Big Brother, though, in regards to like,
what do you mean?
There's a reason why there's cash and people make transactions in cash. Like, now here, like, let's say this type of currency is used across the board.
Yep.
Does that digitize everything, or are we already there? Like, I feel like it's.
I don't think. I think we're moving away from as you can see, right? So they said Biden signed it on Thursday. Everybody was getting money the next day, right? So they don't even the term print money doesn't even exist anymore. They're not even printing money. That doesn't. They just tell the banks, we got your back. Add to your ledger, which we can't see, whatever, 1.9 trillion or whatever, and give Jose his money, get split it up or whatever, right? So in Bitcoin, it doesn't work that way, right? Because what happens when you do that is this: you get these programs where you start to bail people out, right? Societies don't work if the majority of the society doesn't give any value back. So although, and I'm empathetic, we talked about that a little while ago, although we would love to help people and give them food stamps, although we would love, that comes at a price and it comes at a cost. what Bitcoin does is it removes us from that game, because in Bitcoin, you only are worth that Bitcoin if you either earned it or you bought it. Nobody can give you. I mean, people. I could hit you up, but
So for the people who do need food stamps,
yeah,
how do you fix that problem?
with Bitcoin.
Yeah, you just don't give them any money.
No. What I'm saying is that first of all, those those systems need to be monitored better, right? Because you and I know people that are receiving food stamps that don't need to get food stamps.
But I
So
mean,
yeah, Bitcoin doesn't solve that directly.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that if people were, like you said, more aware of being more hope. If people had more hope, they wouldn't sit back and rely on the food stamps, right? Because their money would be working for them, right? And when we talk about money being time and energy, think about Jose being able to store at 34 years old his time, his energy, his money, right? The money doesn't melt away. It actually inflates. I get more time and more energy. And then when I'm 40 years old and I learned all my experience and I learned I can unleash that time and energy.
Yeah.
So what I would tell people that are in food stamp situations is, first of all, you're bad with money if you've gotten to this point, right? Because there's money everywhere.
But
Circumstance is a thing. I do understand that.
yeah.
But for the most part, the people I grew up around, at least, is, my man, you could be doing more. You could be doing more. And people don't do more because they have no hope.
It's
Hit me. I could be wrong.
So
No.
okay,
Yeah.
so my mother was a single mom, and
Yeah.
we were on government assistance for a while.
Sure.
So I understand it a little bit, and I remember that she was not allowed to get a raise at work
Right.
because then the rent would change,
Yep.
the amount of money that she would get. So I would watch my mom literally pass up on promotions because of all these things.
Right.
So it's like it's created a system where, like, one, it consumes you and it controls you.
Yeah.
But there's so many things tied to it that it's really hard that to just be like, oh, they're not hopeful, right?
Right.
Especially if you have a family attached to that. It's a cultural shift, right? In regards to, like, how do you tell someone to go from not having, because it's not like you go from Bitcoin.
Yep.
You still have to be financial aware, financial, like, knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't think, and this is just my personal opinion.
Of course.
What are your thoughts on someone being like, all right, off of food stamps, now I'm investing? Like, what's
Yeah.
the transition look like? You know, or you just
Yeah.
you just pull the plug and you're just like,
No, not at all. I had a buddy of mine explain this very well to somebody. So he was like, "Hey, okay, person who, whatever. Let's put me, Jose. You're on food stamps, man. Hey, have you ever taken your wife out for dinner? Sure. What's the most you ever paid for dinner? I don't know, 80, $100. Okay. You ate that food. You got nothing from it. Put $100 in Bitcoin. See what happens. I'm not telling you to give up your job. I'm not telling you to give up your whatever, your food stamps. I'm telling you that. The next $100 you get, forego the dinner, which, let's be honest, most of us can do, and you put it in, because now you don't have to buy the whole bar. You could just buy a piece of it.
yeah.
Right.
And
And
it's
then
sacrifice.
and
Yeah.
my dad was similar to in some ways to your mom, but I think with my dad it was this: he fought and fought so hard. He tried and tried so hard for so long, and when he saw things like taxes, when he saw things that kept melting his stuff away that he couldn't give to us to give it to his children, he lost hope. And it doesn't mean that he's less of a worker. He's the hardest working guy I know to this day. He was here today to try to do some work. Like, it's that he kind of settled into the, like, well, I can't beat these guys. I'm all set.
And that's something we figured out after we got off the assistance, right? That it's
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
this is why you kind of stay in your comfort zone,
Right.
and let the government kind of do things for you, because it's just like it's a double-edged sword. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Sure.
Especially if you're not getting off and going into that other tax bracket. It's
Sure.
like everything is against you. So I can totally see how you saw the other side of that, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be my dad. You know, so
Yeah.
you have
Trust.
that trust and you have that hope, at least in that aspect of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Only because I taught myself, though. And listen, Bitcoin is not almighty savior of whatever. But the problem that most of us has is financial literacy, right? And then what most people don't understand is, first of all, if they save, kudos to them, because most people don't even save, right? But what they don't know is the next step, which is that when you save, the bank lends your money all over the place and makes crazy amounts of interest on it. And then they offer you a crappy 0.5%. Now, as a creator, when you talk about self-worth, what are you saying about yourself if you're willing to get your hard work, effort, time check? Because remember, time and energy is money. You go to work, you put time and energy, they give you money back. That's how you get exchange for that. How can they make millions of dollars? What kind of deal is that where they make millions of dollars of this? You don't know where it goes because they hide the ledger from you, and they give you 0.5%. Jasmine, that's like you know, starting to work for a company, bringing them in $6 million and they give you $20,000 and they say, oh, well, you don't have no ownership here. That's why you only get $20,000.
I mean, isn't that corporate America?
If we allow it. And that's the shift that we're trying to make, right? So now what's happening is that we're beating these, we young people are beating these older legacy systems to the punch. Right?
And I think that's what it is. I think.
Yeah. People are tired.
No, they're tired. And we were convinced this is the only option. This is what it is.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, like not anymore.
Nope.
They're, yeah. And that's really what it is. It's just these breaking the system, flipping things on their head, you know, and upside really, and just really reconsidering what are the truths. But I think people are also waking up and they're questioning these systems because I think we were so used to taking everything for face value. Right. And I think we're questioning everything at this point, which is for the best. So
yeah. It's just an energy shift and I feel it happening. And the problem with, you know, doing what our parents did and kind of just saying, well, as long as my kids are safe, then I'll just go along with the rules. The problem is that they're not even giving us a fair deal. Hospitals are not giving us a fair deal because we don't have the right insurance, right? Banks are not giving us the right deal because we can't get the same houses that other people can get. Jobs are not giving us the right deal because we're working for $14 an hour, right? So it's like, why do I have to play this game anymore, right? So now what I know is this. I can't buy a $200,000, you know, Leonardo da Vinci portrait or whatever like that. But I could get me some Satoshis. I could get me some gold. Yeah, you're
right.
And I don't got to pay for it because, like I just gave you the example earlier, these companies are giving it back to you now just for using shit that you do. I pay for services for my business and all that, and I'm just getting Bitcoin back.
Yeah.
And the difference is that we call it fiat, me and my wife. Everybody calls it fiat, but fiat. So I got an Apple card. They give me 3% back in fiat. Okay, so that fiat now, if I don't do anything with it and I put it away for savings, starts to melt. Right? So now, on the other hand, you give me $5 in Bitcoin back. Those are little gold nuggets. I wake up tomorrow morning, Bitcoin is going on a hike, and that $5 now turns to 10, turns to 15, $20. Eventually, I paid off for my meal. I paid off for the purchase of it. Right? So I'm living for free if I'm willing to delay my gratification long enough. So I paid I think it was like 60. I paid $60 to eat with my kids. I got $5 in Bitcoin back. By next year, I know that's a long time. That meal is free, and then some.
And I think it's like playing the long game, right?
Absolutely. Delay gratification.
Yes, and I think that's the hard thing because
everything, by the way, not just money.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And we're really good at that, right?
Yeah.
It might, you know, there's this hope. There's this like feeling of like we didn't have enough. So that money comes in and you wanna ball out, you know, you want to have these experiences. So it's really hard to really sacrifice money
trust
for the long term. Yeah.
You got to put it away. But then the important thing is, which the rich people know, is where do you put it away? Right?
Exactly.
Because if you put it in a savings or if you put it under your mattress, then now the federal government is debasing that money without your authority. So you got $1,000 under the mattress for like a rainy day or whatever they call it. And by the time you get to the rainy day, you try to take your family out to the movie theaters and you have less buying power. That money, that $1,000 doesn't even get you $1,000 worth of stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I put that $1,000 in a rare hard asset, Bitcoin, right? Real estate, whatever it may be. Then that $1,000 by the time I get to it could be $15,000, $20,000. And then I could buy a shitload. I delayed my gratification. I let these assets work, right? But at least for me, I was just taught, hey man, save for a rainy day. Make sure you have an emergency fund. That's not how you play this game. You have to have trust. Yes, have an emergency fund. Yeah. I have one. Have one. It's important. Shit happens. But this is something you want to buy. This is something you want to hold for a long time, possibly hand it off to your children. And there's no reason, like I told you a little while ago, to even get rid of it because you could just get US dollars for it.
Exactly.
Right? Like you could just get collateral, that stuff. And it's liquid, right? So shout out to my dad. He understood the value proposition of digital gold. So he's an older gentleman about to be in his 60s. But he dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Every week he gives me $50. Hey man, I don't know shit about that technology. I don't know what the hell you're doing with that magic or whatever. But this is my part. Giving you my dirty money, my fiat money, which is gonna go down in value, so you can give me some gold.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that for them, and I'm happy to say that they've been doing it for a little while, and they've already doubled their money.
Oh, okay.
Right? I don't like to show it to them because then there's that whole emotional of like, let me get this out and buy something with it. But if you delay gratification long enough, you can either live to be able to enjoy this, or at least make sure that your children, that next lineage, is not suffering like you're suffering.
Yeah.
And we don't get, that's why I say it's Apple, that's why I say it's Disney. We don't get these opportunities too often where we're early on something, especially as a normal person. Like big billionaire companies are not in Bitcoin yet. So we're ahead of them if we buy Bitcoin. There is some, not all though.
Do
They
you
started
think?
coming
Do
around.
you think there's no interest for a reason?
No, there's huge interest, right?
Mm.
So it started to go off because of COVID, right? So
Mhm.
last year at this time, unbelievable stuff. Last year at this time, Bitcoin was at $3,000, I believe, just to
Mhm.
make it easy. So that's nobody cares about Bitcoin. It's
Mhm.
$3,000. COVID happened, right? And then people and businesses and started to figure out, well, these guys are just printing money for no reason, right? And then we all know everybody knows what inflation is. Everywhere around the world, history has shown us
Mhm.
it fails every single time. Every empire fails because of inflation. But anyways, so then Bitcoin started to get traction, right? And then the message started getting around. Hey, y'all, storage of wealth. If you don't want them debasing your money, put it in here. Put it by this gold. And then it started to catch on. But what really changed was in November. There's a guy called Michael Saylor, and he is the CEO of a company called MicroStrategies, right?
Mhm.
And he is a smart man. Like I've heard him talk, and he's historical buff. He knows a lot of stuff. It's a tech company, understands that. And he was the first one to say, hey, you guys, average people, you guys do something called hodling, which is holding on to this and not getting rid of it.
Mhm.
What we do as business people is we put 5% on a treasury asset, right? So he made it cool and gave the blueprint for companies like Tesla to basically buy Bitcoin and put it on their treasury sheet.
Oh, I did see
Now we
that.
have.
What's
Now
his
we
name?
cooking.
Elon Musk bought like.
Well, his company Tesla did.
Yeah.
So that blueprint that he bought under was because of Michael Saylor. So now what's happening is this. Now it's no longer techies,
Mhm.
geeks, crypto guys. It's no longer those guys trading Bitcoin. Now we got guys with big pockets buying Bitcoin.
Okay.
So we're talking about 21 million to ever exist. And they're not available yet. They get mined on a mathematical system.
Mhm.
So you don't have to trust the government. Trust this. You verify with math. This is happening,
Mhm.
right? So that's when people say, well, what am I investing in? You're investing in math and being verified, right? So that's the key part. So now he made it cool for these guys to come in and buy. I think his first buy, Michael Saylor's first buy, was like $780 million worth of Bitcoin, right? So he took that supply and started to put a choker on it, right? Elon Musk, 1.5, choker on it, right? These other companies coming in, choker on it, right? So now what happens to guys like Jose that were in before these guys? My gold goes up in price
Mhm.
because I have something that's running out in the world.
Mhm.
So now it's like rarely when I don't think our parents ever got this shot besides Apple and Disney. When do we get the opportunity now to get in for cheap, sometimes a cup of coffee, and be able to go to the moon, right? To be able to buy Manhattan and on dumb. They're gonna do it for me. I mean, I put $50 here and there. I dollar cost average. That's what I recommend to people. Get a number that you can do every week, $25, $50.
And that was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
Are you still investing, or did you stick to your
Every day.
Mm.
I'm a little bit extreme. So, but it's because I've gone down the security rabbit hole. Out of the people I know, I understand the tech of the security more and why it's safe.
We're gonna be on your yacht. Is that what you're telling me?
I hope so. Please. With the drag queens and everything.
Oh yes.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's gonna get to the point where we keep buying these satoshis and we dollar cost average at $5 or whatever, and that just inflates to a point where we can live comfortably. Maybe we're not all gonna be millionaires, but I guarantee you, this is the only way to store your time and energy, which is what money is, and be able to somewhere down the road either pass it on to your kids, which is what they're gonna use, or just be able to live it up yourself. Like one day you could cash in and buy that boat, right? Or take the trip you've always wanted to take. There's a different argument on that. There's a side of the community that's investor wise, which is once I get to 100,000, I'm out. Like I'm taking this and I'm running. And then there's guys like me who understand that, you know, if I give it up for $100,000 and the fiat system continues to do what it does, I'm gonna be really mad when it turns to 200,000. I'm gonna be really mad when it's at 300,000. So to me, I'm a hippie in that sense, where it's like, no, I want this gold. I'm a collector. I like to collect this. I want it. And yeah, to answer your question, I started with, you know, $15 every week. You know, since while I was learning, right? Because it's an investment. You want to know what you're investing in. You want to be. So $15 here, whatever. And long story short, I've dumped my whole 401k into it. I've dumped IRAs that I have into it. Yep. And by the way, and she's here, of course. This is a decision I've made with my wife, right? Like this is our money. This is our future. And the reason is this: you can have a lot of doubt on Bitcoin, and you can be very questionable about Bitcoin. But there's one thing that you can't tell me that doesn't happen, and that's inflation. That's the debasement of our currency. So you can tell me that Bitcoin is trash, you can tell me what all that, but I tell you Bitcoin is hope. Because if I know what that money is doing, the US dollar is doing, which is going down every single day, if they continue to print, right? And I know what history has shown me, which I think it was 95 different times in history, fiat currency, which is the dollar that we have, has been tried. It has failed every single time. There's not been one time that a civilization that uses fiat currency has succeeded. And the reason is because the government that sees that fiat always finds the way to fuck with the money.
So your 401k is gone completely now?
Yes.
Oh,
I have
that's commitment.
I'm getting mad info on the podcast. Yo,
sorry, getting into the personals right now.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's left in there, my employer matches me, and what they match me as a vested money, which means I can't take that out.
So that's something that I also reconsidered. I mean, I'm not investing anywhere else, but I figured out a long time ago the 401k is not the end all. Like, there's no way I'm going to retire and live comfortable with that money.
Right.
You know, so I think this is why I was exploring outside streams of income and how I'm gonna like invest, because I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the return on investment is not where it needs to be, and it's just, where is the money going? Like, you know, I'm not making decisions on my own money.
Yeah.
But it's something I don't think about.
So the 401k, back to our story about, like, so my dad, he had a 401k for a long time, and for listening to my mom is what me and my sister said. He basically took it out early, and we know what happens when you take it out early. They fine you. They give you a penalty, right? So because of his experience with the 401k, he taught me, bullshit, bro. Don't give those people your money. That's baloney. It wasn't baloney. He didn't use it the way it was supposed to be used, right? So what I tell people about 401k is, if you have no other vessel like for your money, do a 401k, right? Because you're gonna track the stock market, and as we know, as long as the government can do it, they're gonna save the stock market. So you'll get 8 to 12% every year on your money if you do it in a 401k. Now that's for the next 30 years. You can see a little nice penny when you retire, and if you do a Roth, that means you pay the taxes now. So when you cash out, you don't pay taxes, right? So cool. My argument with the 401k is this, and what I learned is this. If I just told you a little bit of what money and value is, and I tell you that, you know, over time the money melts, right, in the account. I worked 37 years. So what's going to happen to that money that I get in my 401k? I'm going to work my whole life to get money that's already been melting, and I'm going to get half the buying power. So it doesn't work for me, right? So that's what they call putting your money in things that hedge inflation. So if you track the best 500 companies, which is called the S&P 500, you get a 12% usual return on your stock. If you track all those companies, right? Bitcoin, year in and year out, has done 200% gain. So you can work your whole life and get 12% a year, or you can invest in this new gold, digital gold, which is not a company, it's a sovereign gold, and get 200% a year in spike. That's a no-brainer. That's the easiest gamble of all time. And that's the thing. But you only understand that when you understand what the Fed is doing with the money. You lose a respect for the money because you understand that you're kind of selling it. Well, we talk about value. We're selling ourselves short every single day. Yeah. So I could do my job in 2 hours. I work an 8-hour shift. I could do my job in 2 hours.
Don't say that in public.
I don't care. Fire me. Fire me.
You gotta trick them.
No, they know this. I'm upset the whole day. I've been complaining to my coworker. So anyways, my point is this, right? So I could get paid $1,000 for a website. I could do the website on a, if it's an easy project and I have, some templates and stuff like that, I could get a website done in 4 hours. Break that down, $250 an hour. And I could get 5 of those websites in a week. I'm getting close to $20 an hour right now at my job, and I can do that job in 2 hours. So what happens with the other 6? I'm melting away. My skills are melting away. My youth is melting away. My time with my family is melting away. I'm melting away. How do I beat that? I find something that grows up 200% in a year, and I invest in that, right? And then I beat their game, because now, while everybody's miserable at work, and you'll see this if you were to ghost me all day at work, you will see that I'm the happiest motherfucker at work. And I'm the happiest motherfucker at work, not because I'm a cool and lighthearted guy, but because my assets are growing so fast in the background. That I'm not.
It's like, I'm happy because I'm rich.
I'm not rich. But I'm starting to play rich games. And when I think about the fact that my house now is worth double the price that I paid for it, right? We talk about rich people and they talk about liquid net worth, right? So I've talked to people that have money and I'm like, hey, man, how much you keep in your bank account, man? You must be loaded. I got like 500 in my checking. And you're just like, dude, you just came up in this BMW. Like, what are you talking about? Their liquid net worth, though. What is their house worth? What is their assets worth? What does their portfolio look like? That's liquidable money, right? So as people are having a hard time getting paid $16 to $19 an hour to do the work that I do and all that stuff, I pull out my phone, I check the stats, and I see that Bitcoin, which is only one of my assets, is going parabolic. And what parabolic is just not doing this. It's just going this. Right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just going up, right? And then I'm like, yo, all the Bitcoin I got just doubled in price. I'm just sitting here just making money. When I sleep, I'm making money.
Yeah,
When I hang
yeah.
out with my kids, I'm making money. And what they never showed us is that Warren Buffett, I think, is the one who said it. If you don't figure out a way to have your money make money while you sleep, you're always going to be poor.
Well, passive income was never something that I knew about. I was an adult.
Yeah, sure.
And that's really what it is. It's just like, how do you get your money to work for you? And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
we were never exposed to that, at least
Never.
not in my family,
No,
so
no. I made $25,000 in my first year of doing digital marketing, right off the street, right off the rip. So I gave myself a $25,000 raise in that year. I was able to take 2 vacations. I was able to do a bunch of stuff. I don't got no more of that money. Where the hell did it go? It's a bunch of other stupid shit, right? And then if I would have had $25,000 now, I would have turned that 25 to 50 to 75. I would have delayed my gratification, and then when it would have got to 100. I would have stored all that time and energy, and you would have seen me on the beach somewhere. We would have been recording this podcast down in Miami somewhere.
I mean, there's still time.
And that's what I mean. Only
You're
if we
gonna
play
be
the game,
doing it
right?
on the yacht.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm down. But that was a long tangent. Like, that's the thing. Like, I try to help people with business. That's my thing, right? Like, education, like you, is my thing. So I try to, I was able to, like I said, pay myself $25,000 by learning how to do this stuff myself and having a low overhead, right? So I did most that $25,000. I made it on this laptop. And I want to help people do that, right? Because we can do that. We can empower ourselves to do that. But now I'm on a different shift because I did that for a long time, and I was still only holding my head over water.
Yeah.
And it was because of that, because I didn't understand money. I praised it too much. Oh, the dollar bill. Oh my gosh.
But it's boring.
What, praising it?
No, learning about money. I'm speaking from like a creative. And I think that's the biggest thing is just like I have no interest in it.
Yeah.
Even though like I want to make it, I want it. It's just
pay somebody to do it. Well, really, you don't need to learn about money, right? You just need to learn about what money is and is not. So that's not too complicated. And then you need to learn where to put your money. But you don't need to learn the ins and outs. You don't need to learn about tax brackets. I don't know how to read a stock chart. You put one in front of me, I'm going to be like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know. I just know that, things over time make money. And that's why rich people put it in paintings. That's why rich people buy real estate because land is rare, right? Well, quote unquote rare. But
I guess to me that was an investment that I made.
Yeah.
So I don't own stocks, but I did buy property in regards. I bought a bunch of acres.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's a piece of the planet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Absolutely.
Probably gonna hold value.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's not really doing anything at the moment, but it's just there.
So that's a storage of wealth, right? So you bought land. You could put a house on it, right? You could put a few houses on it. You could sell it for public, use. I don't know. A really cool story is I got a buddy of mine who his dad owns the liquor store in Kelly Square, and he owns the it's a classic place, the Vernon Motel is right there in the corner.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like an old bar or whatever,
Yeah.
right? They have a speakeasy underneath. I don't know if you knew that. That's pretty cool.
Ooh,
Yeah, in the basement. Yeah, he'll let you go down there and see it. It's dope. It's super classic, like 1920s. Yeah.
I mean, that is an interesting place.
Yeah. A lot of shit went down there. But my point is this, is that he owns that. His dad owns that, and it's literally like a little strip of land behind it, right? When the city of Worcester came in to put in the ballpark, that land was mad money. I forgot what the number was, but I was like, yo, John, you can't even put. John is my buddy. I was like, John, but you couldn't even put a little cabin in that little piece of land. And he's like, yo, I think it was like $100K or $150K or something like that, just for like a little kid's backyard. It was, and that's right. You own a piece of gold, right, of a scarce asset that they can't make any more of. And when somebody with big pockets needs it, they're gonna give you a lot of money. But I'm actually writing about this in the manuscript for my next book. Is like, they never tell us that grandma's house that she left for us would be worth 10 times more if we kept it in the family. But on the other hand, homeboy shows up to your door and says, hey, I'll give you top dollar for grandma's house and take it off your hands.
So that's exactly how I fell into my situation. So the property that I bought was in Dominican Republic.
Okay. Sweet.
My grandfather and my grandmother had this property, and when my grandmother ended up passing away, it fell onto my aunts and uncles and my mom.
Yep.
They were gonna sell it. And first of all, I was unemployed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I was like, this is a lot of property. I'm just like, I think I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. Smart move.
Went to a random Dominican bank.
Yeah.
I got approved.
Yeah. Smart move.
And it was just like, you got to do it scared.
Yep.
You just got to do it. It was something that was just like, this is way, it's already in the family,
Yeah.
and
keep
we're
it here.
just going to let it go.
Right.
And that's what it was. In my mind, I was like, this is going to be worth so much more money in the
Yep.
future.
Absolutely.
And that was the mindset.
Yep.
I didn't know how I was going to
Yep.
do it.
Good
like,
for you.
No questions asked. I just moved forward. And
Smart move.
it was, and guess what? Now my family wants to buy a piece.
For more than what it was worth, I'm sure.
And I'm like,
don't be nice. Don't be nice. No deals.
But honestly, to me, it's just like, now I know that.
Yeah.
If there's an apocalypse,
Yeah.
we have a place to go.
Sure,
So.
sure. You just know it's yours, right? It's one of those, like, when we bought this house here or whatever, I'm not the biggest fan of Worcester. I'm not the biggest fan of Massachusetts. We talked about that. But I know one thing for sure. I own a piece of the city. And they could keep putting ballparks here. They could keep putting all this other stuff here. And one day I'm just going to leave for triple, quadruple the price. Or if hopefully educate my kids enough to know, hey, man, when dad dies, because actually that's one of the chapters in one of my current books right now, which is Meditate on Mortality. I do that a lot because I'm like, look, when dad dies, you guys need to keep this if it's still part of the family, because somebody's going to come, and it's probably going to be a bank, and they're going to claim that they're going to give you top dollar. But that's where the assets come in. If we delay gratification, right, and instead of taking that bullshit money and splitting it up and fighting for who's getting what, we keep it in the house, maybe even rent it out. You don't have to live in it. Just rent it out. Keep it in the family, and 10 years is going to be 10x, and it's going to keep going up, and maybe they can hand it to their children. Somewhere, like, I know there's like Asians do it. I know there's still ethnicities that are good on that, but us Latinos don't do that. We don't pass on stuff like that. And usually when it gets passed on, you hear horror stories.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone. Or, oh, I sold it. I live in Florida now because I sold it. Oh, it's the biggest mistake ever.
But, $10,000 is a big deal. $1,400 is a big deal. It's...
Know your worth. I don't think... And know the worth of your assets in that situation. But, like, now on a creator standpoint, the big thing with podcasts is this, right? So there's a big problem happening in podcasts where companies like Spotify are trying to get creators like me to take the check. Right? Like, yo, listen, you put it behind the pay with Joe Rogan, right? We'll give you $100 million. Your show's only exclusive here. You're putting it behind a paywall when podcasting is an open spectrum. Now, Joe Rogan took his $100 million. Kudos, that's his value to him. But what my thing is that he did a big disservice to the podcasting industry because he's worth more than $100 million. His audience is worth more than $100 million. His word is more than $100 million. And because he put himself behind the Spotify wall, I don't even have Spotify on my phone, so I can't enjoy the Joe Rogan podcast.
I bet you're going to get Spotify.
No, I did, and I deleted it because I don't think...
You don't miss Joe?
Huh?
You don't miss him?
First of all, I do. First of all, there's ways to get him without Spotify. The internet is undefeated, so I could just go get like a stream somewhere. But my thing is that, first of all, I'm a virtuous person, and I'm very, I'm very for the cause. Podcasting is an open platform, so anything that's on Spotify I don't listen to. It's not just Joe Rogan. But genuinely, their app sucks. It's a really bad app. And I used to code Android apps, so that's why I'm picky about that stuff. But it's a really bad app. It doesn't function very well. And if I'm mad at you as a company, right, and I want to ban you in my head, I don't do boycott campaigns and all that shit. If I were to ban you personally because I don't like your business practices, and at the same time your app sucks, that's an easy one.
So where was Joe Rogan before? He was
anywhere.
Independent?
Because like my podcast, you can get it on Apple, you can get it on Spotify, you can get it. So podcasting is a thing where you put it in an XML file, and then RSS feeds can read that file no matter where they're at and give it to the people for free.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now you get my podcast on anything you like to listen to it on for free, right? Joe Rogan was like that for a while, and he had the YouTube episode, right? So he would have the whole episode on YouTube for free if you wanted to see the video. And then Spotify came, and they didn't just do this to Joe Rogan. They did it to Joe Budden. They did it. They had a Michelle Obama podcast, which nobody was interested in, but they figured they could pay their way to do that. So what Spotify did was the Netflix thing, which is like, if we just get mad like creators here and pay them, we'll be the podcasting giant.
Yeah.
But what podcasters know is that, well, wait a minute. This is how we talk to our fans directly without y'all, without the Googles of the world and the YouTubes of the world. This is our open podium, right? So why are you trying to black hole the whole industry? Now, Joe Rogan, $100 million, that sounds fantastic. But I would argue that with my audience, if it was the size of Joe Rogan's, I could bring in more than $100 million easy.
But wouldn't that be the goal? Like, so let's say you start a business, right? And then you get acquired by a bigger company to make more money.
I don't like those words.
But isn't...
Acquired to me is an on the low contract word for we own you.
But isn't it the reality of business?
Okay, so this is Spotify. I could sign for them for $100 million, but then I got Spotlight Coalition Network where I own it
Mhm.
and I empower creators, and they
Mhm.
could podcast on my network, and we could all split that pie together without having to, right, without having to hand over ownership. So now Jose determines his value, and he allows area for his podcasters to explore their value, right? Because the people that are on SpotlightCoalition.com right now, which they're fantastic podcasters, they don't pay me a penny to be on my website. I
Mhm.
pay for the hosting fees. I do all the website work. I set up their QR codes so fans could donate to them on Cash App and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm empowering them to know their value, right? And then, like I told them in the meetings when we talked beforehand, the reason I do this is when you get your money or your, like they like to say, when your wings flat or whatever,
Mhm.
you're not tied to me one bit. You're not legally tied to me. You're not financially tied to me. Now you can go do whatever. That's what I want. On the other hand, Spotify is not even trying to empower people. They're just trying to say, we got more money than you. So we'll get Michelle Obama to do a podcast.
Exactly.
Who asked for
Exactly.
that?
Yeah.
Nobody asked for Michelle. Listen,
Well,
I
I
listened
don't.
to it.
What do you mean? Nobody asked for her. You
Nobody
know
asked
she's
for
the
it.
number one liked woman in like the world.
I champion
You
you
are
to.
hating on Michelle Obama. Is that what you're telling
I
me?
love Michelle Obama. Listen, I champion you to go sit through that podcast for more than 20 minutes. And you're going to call me and be like, you're not going to text me. You're going to call me, yo.
And you know what Michelle's gonna say? But they wrote that check.
They wrote that check.
And-
yeah, but.
And that's really what it comes down to. I think.
Does it though?
Is Joe really trying to empower everybody? Like,
Ma-
is he
no,
really
no,
trying to?
everybody has their own price.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own thing. And I think Joe said that they worked out a deal where Spotify doesn't own the Joe Rogan podcast. They just have exclusive licensing to it.
I see.
So I guess in his head, it was like, I can get 100 mil and I still own this shit. I can do whatever I want. So that's business.
But I have a question for you. So,
Sure.
in regards to reaching the right people and making sure that we get into positions that
Yep.
we're able to contribute,
Right.
right? And educate back. Wouldn't you want to be in a platform that, although maybe it might be a little bit more restrictive, you have a larger platform? You know, so
Yeah.
it's like where's the give and take?
I'll give you an example.
Where is it that we're sacrificing our old
Ownership.
ideas?
Ownership.
Ownership.
Yeah.
So if you can do it with ownership, you would be okay with it.
Yeah, because at that point, it's a partnership, right? At that point, it's legally binded that I own my creative work, and therefore I
Mhm.
dictate the future of the creative work. I'll give you a good example. Two Joes here, and there are two podcasters that I listen. And this is the thing. Joe Rogan's offer is a unicorn. No podcaster is getting $100 million, right? So obviously, that's hard to compare. But I'm going to give you two examples how we're not at the table. Joe Rogan gets $100 million offer and can keep ownership of his podcast and his name and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Joe Budden, the other Joe Budden, black guy, right? We know Joe
Mhm.
Budden. Pump it up, right? All right. Joe Budden has I don't know if it's 30 million, but he has a massive following as well. His podcast was the first exclusive to Spotify. So Spotify tested it on him first.
Mhm.
They did a 3-year deal where you can only get the Joe Budden podcast on Spotify. So he kind of pioneered that. So you would think the pioneer that successfully showed you this works
Mhm.
would get the cutout.
Mhm.
Joe Budden publicly on his podcast argued about how Spotify treated him when he came to the table at ownership. They wanted the name Joe Budden. They wanted not only his name, his co-host name, Rory.
Mhm.
They wanted Maul. They wanted Parks. And they wanted exclusivity to the video. No YouTube. You're
Mhm.
bringing it to us, all that stuff, right? The offer, I believe, was $20 million. That's nowhere near $100 million,
Mhm.
right? $20 million. And you don't own the shit. We own the shit. But how come the other guy got 100 mil? What am I missing here besides ethnicity? We both have huge followings. You know, as we know, the culture makes everything cool. So
Mhm.
Joe Budden and those guys are awesome. I recommend anybody listen to them, right? So then it goes back to that value system, which is like, if Joe Budden didn't know what he was worth, if Joe Budden didn't know what his buddies were worth, he would have signed a deal that would have basically made them employees instead of owners. They shifted from that and now are doing fantastic as owners. And they have their own network, Joe Budden Podcast Network.
He's no longer on Spotify?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. And he went public. And this is the funny thing. The Spotify people were, mind you, he's the first one to do it. So while he was in negotiations, Spotify went and gave Michelle Obama, I think it was $80 million.
Mhm.
They gave Joe Rogan $100 million. They bought Bill Simmons, which I love Bill Simmons' network too. They gave Bill Simmons his whole podcast network I think they bought it for like close to $1 billion or something like that. It was an
Mm.
incredible number, right? So now, once again, you're sitting here. You're the guy that they guinea pig to see if this exclusivity thing works.
Mhm.
Because before Joe Budden, it was everywhere. You weren't exclusive. So they guinea pigged you. They used your audience. They made millions off of you. This is another argument Joe Budden made, which is like they didn't even want to show us the stats. Like they hid it.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Like when we would go to the table, like, okay, well, how many people are watching or downloading? They would like obscure that fact. Like, they'll use weird terms like downloads instead of streams and stuff like that, right? So this is all public. You can listen to this. He brought this to the table for creators to understand that if you don't own it, your work, it's like not owning your publishing in music. Yeah, Michael Jackson, if he doesn't have his publishing, I think he does, by the way, but like his estate does at least. If you don't have your publishing, they're gonna continue to make money off of you for the rest of your life and not give you a penny.
And as crazy as Kanye West is, that was one of his talking points, that as a creative, you are a business. Yeah. You know, so knowing your worth and how you're gonna manage that is super important.
Right.
And you know, you try to make sense of all the things that he says, but he's doing very well for himself, so he must be doing something right.
Those guys are ahead, yeah. And it's ownership. Like, once again, Jasmine, if you pour your heart and sweat out into your next art piece or whatever, you don't want, let's just use the city of Worcester, but any business, you don't want the city of Worcester to say, oh, yeah, her name is in the corner there or whatever, but all rights and proceeds go to us. She doesn't, she already, like, we already paid her basically to do that work, and now anything that happens with that work, it could go on to Paris and be in the museum next to the Mona Lisa. That has nothing to do with you anymore. You don't own that. You gave it up. That's the problem. And then Joe Rogan's situation is a unicorn because Joe Budden would have took the offer if it was an ownership offer. Like if you were like, all right, well, we won't give you 100, we'll give you 50 mil, and you can own everything. But they didn't give him that deal. But they gave Joe Rogan that deal, and they gave Amy Schumer that deal, and they gave a bunch of other people that are not of the culture that same deal. No, Michelle Obama's not in the culture. Sorry. She's black, but she's not of the culture. I'm just saying.
She is the culture. She's inspired an entire culture. Debatable. All right.
Debatable.
Is it because she's a female? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No. Listen, I got two daughters, and I'm happily married with a sister and a mother. I love women to death. I wouldn't be here without women.
Because I will pick Michelle over Joe Budden any day.
Sure. But when we talk about like people that are like us, not to say Michelle Obama never went through no hardship. I think Joe Budden went through more hardship than Michelle Obama, right? Like he grew up in the streets like we did. Maybe she did too, but we don't all get to be in the White House either. But we can all take ownership of our content.
Of course.
And Michelle Obama's not telling me to own my content. She's telling me to, what is it? Go lower. You think I'm a hater, don't you?
We're going high.
You see what I'm saying, right? And then Joe's over here screaming his heart out saying, know your worth. They're trying to take this money from you. So I'm going to listen to that guy. But nothing against Michelle Obama. I listened to the podcast. She had Barack as her first guest. I thought I was going to be all for that. I love the way Barack talks. That's what made him a great president, is that he can talk well, right? I don't even care what he did. He could talk well. Oh, it was such a sleeper.
Really?
It was like 20, and I'm a connoisseur of podcasts. Like 20 minutes in, I was like, all right, enough.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys are not saying anything. It seems like you're having a super scripted conversation. It didn't even seem like them. It seemed very ingenuine, right? And then the fact that I couldn't even put somebody on, like say, yo, go check this out, because if they don't have the Spotify app, they can't check it out.
She's just like, I'm sorry. I'm just amazing at so many other things. Yeah. Podcasting is not my jam.
Fair. I'll give her that. I've heard she's a great author, by the way. So I give her that. But come on now. And then they did this thing recently where they put Spotify paid for, I think it was Bon Jovi and two of the most random people of all time that you would never think would be in a room together. They paid money, and now these two guys are gonna get together and do a podcast. And it's very weird. Why though? That's not. First of all, it's not creative. And second of all, you can't New York Yankees your way into this. You can't just buy all the All-Stars and then want to win the World Series all the time.
It looks like it's happening, though.
Yeah, but then they got guys like me that are revolting, right? And that's the same thing if you want to go back to money, right? The bank is doing that, and we're revolting. Yeah. That's what Bitcoin does. It's a revolt. It's a peaceful revolt.
Yes.
But to me, the main argument here is take whatever deal you want, but make sure you understand your value. Because it takes time we've been sitting here talking for 2 hours, which is incredible, by the way. You're probably my longest podcast, which I love. But we spent time, energy, our characters are on the line, our personality, whatever, all this stuff and investment. And to think that a company like Spotify would say, well, job well done, Jose. Here's a little bit of the piece of that. Now we're going to continue to run with it and make millions off of this. If you don't think that's a problem as a creator, then you might not be a real creator because it doesn't bother you, or you just haven't looked into it enough?
I just think as a creator,
Yep.
those are afterthoughts.
What is?
Just there's the creative work that you do, and then now that it's produced, it's like really taking a reflective view into what you've done,
Yep.
and now you have to put a value. It's not one and the same.
Yeah.
You know,
It's hard too.
You know, like even now I've been doing this for a while now, and I don't think I'm associating it with self-doubt, but at the
Yeah.
same time it's like, what is the highway I'm supposed to take? There's
Yeah.
still so many unknowns, you
Yeah.
know? And then it's like, maybe I think the licensing is the way to go because I haven't seen, and it seems so.
Yeah.
They do such a good job. There's these non-sponsored people who are shooting Bitcoin on me, and
Sure.
they're doing the same. You know,
Yeah.
you know,
Sure.
you spoke about it, and it's like it comes convincing enough that you're like, yeah, you know. So people put their value on your work, and I think even in the conversations we've had today, we've even leveled up in regards to we are doing stuff for our community, you know. And to me, it's never. I wouldn't say it's not the reason why I do it, but it's infused in what I do. So
Sure.
I don't kind of use it as a
Yeah.
a stepping stone of anything. It's
Yeah.
just this is the silver lining in my work, right?
Sure.
You know, so I'm like,
I'm with you.
would I have known not to take the licensing deal before this conversation?
Yeah.
Not
Maybe
having
not,
those
no.
opportunities, I've never really had the conversations about financial gains
Sure.
in my field because I work in corporate America.
Yeah.
You know,
right,
it's like,
right.
so how do you monetize your hobbies? How do you monetize
Right.
your creativity? It's really hard and I'm not gonna wait to
Yeah.
learn all this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to fall a lot of
Sure.
times
Absolutely.
and being able to be resilient and being able to be strong. And I think that's something that is pretty much ingrained in us,
Yeah.
you know? So
Sure.
that's the good thing. And maybe that's why we can handle the cocotazos, but it's talking to people like you that
Yeah.
I can get from 1 to 20
Yeah.
without having to do all this nonsense over
work,
here,
right,
you
right.
know, and then
Yeah.
really connecting with people who understand a different aspect of
Right.
what is also kind of connected to what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. Right.
So
I just if you're confused with, but back to you said like it's hard. You're right. It's hard to know what your value is. It's hard to know how to put a price on things or whatever. But I always default to let the free market decide. Let your audience tell you what that price is, right? Because if they value it, you shouldn't let a company put the value on you. Because if Spotify puts a price on you, right? So Jasmine has a show. Spotify says it's is worth $50 million.
mhm.
But your audience and the numbers, because remember, everything's analytics in business. Your numbers are showing you that you are worth easily triple that. The free market has decided that
Mhm.
your work is worth that much. That's what a creator needs to see, is what they are asking of me, because Spotify isn't buying your shit. They are rocking with you.
Yeah.
They are following with you.
Mhm.
So you're right. I think Joe Budden can say this stuff because he's been through the music
Mhm.
industry. He's taken shitty deals before. He understands that. But then it's my job to take the information of the individual that's gotten the cocotazos and make sure that I don't get the cocotazos.
Exactly.
And that's where I
Exactly.
try to come in with and that's why I'm upset at Spotify. And it's not because of him specifically. It's because, once again, you got two big podcast conglomerates here when it comes to the Joe Budden podcast and the Joe Rogan podcast. And the way those two businesses were handled, those two transactions, contracts were handled, were night and day. They were basically telling, and I do hate to circle back on the minority card and all that stuff, but once again, the only two difference with these two gentlemen here is that one of them is a white dude that we all know from TV, and the other one is just a quote-unquote rapper that now is a podcaster, right? So unless Spotify can come out the middle and say, nah, it wasn't because of that, here are the numbers, and that's what we based our decision with, which they never will.
Yeah.
You have to tell me, you brought Jasmine on to try something. Hey, we're going to try exclusive podcast. That might not work, but who could do that? Jasmine could do it. Okay, cool. So we give Jasmine a 3-year deal. As Jasmine's deal is about to end, she starts noticing that you're doing exclusive deals with other people. So the guinea pig example, it worked. People are fucking with this.
Mm-hmm.
That Jasmine, that person who guinea pigged this and showed you, deserves more than what your initial offer is, what you're willing to do. Instead, you went and paid all these, Michelle Obama's not white, but all these Caucasian guys, right? These businesses or whatever. And then you went to these guys and said, hey, we want to own all your shit. We want to give you a third of what we gave him. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to show you the numbers. As a creator, you can't fall for the $20 million. When you know, and your people, your audience is telling you, yo, Jose, yo, Jasmine, nah, man, You're worth more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you sell yourself for $20 million,
I mean, I definitely will sell myself for $20 million right now.
I might too. I might too. But it would depend on my audience, right? Like, if somebody comes to me and says, yo, $20 million, and I'm like, yeah, but my audience don't even fuck with me. Like, I'm taking the $20 million because they fucked up. But if my audience is like constantly engaging with me and constantly telling me my shit is dope, and maybe I got a merch line and my audience fucks with it, and every time I drop a new line, they rolling with it, or a new gallery, and they're always there to show up. I don't need Spotify to tell me I'm worth $20 million.
No, and Joe did the right thing. You know, he realized he was getting a crappy deal, and he left, and then he started his own platform. So that's really what
for his peers too, because he said it. He was like, "Look."
So that's the pivot. He's doing it the right way. It's like, all right, the system isn't for you.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do about it? Right.
Yeah.
So
that's just all. I mean, we're creators, and we went on a whole tangent about knowing your value and knowing your worth. But
I know my value.
Yeah. I think we come from the streets. We come from being in debt. We come from these things that whenever we get that first opportunity to get some good amount of money, right? I think athletes go through this a lot too, where it's like you may destroy your brain playing football, but you found it an ability to come up and feed your family and stuff like that. So I do get that whole argument, but if you're forward thinking enough, if you believe in yourself enough, and you have enough self-value, you would understand that you can come up on your own and have ownership. But also, if he would have took that deal, he was gonna fuck up his boy. He was gonna like they were all going down. So he had to make that decision for other people as well that was working with him.
That's the key to it. Yep.
That's huge, right? So that's what I got from, and that's why I'm big on podcasts being an open platform. Everybody should be able to listen to a podcast, and if a person wants to monetize it, then they could do advertisement during the podcast. That's okay. You've heard that. Or you could tell your people, hey man, I got this, whatever. Any way of that shape or form. But I'm not one to say, hey, in order for you to listen to my content, you have to come here.
Exactly.
Yeah. The only way around that would be like a Patreon, where it's like, you're not getting this episode, but you're getting another 3.5 hours that me and Jazz did as an extra for being a Patreon subscriber.
Exactly.
So there, the free market is deciding, oh yeah, I'll give Jose $19.99 a month to get this extra content. But the original podcast itself, this one, is free for everybody, and I'll never change that.
Exactly.
Because I want my people that listen to me, that get value from these conversations, to say, hey, even on my brokest of brokest weeks, I can still get some wisdom from Jose. I can still get some inspiration from Jose and his guest. I can still come up and do that. But when you try to come in and buy everybody, and then I got to pay Spotify, $19.99, but then I know that Spotify is not giving that money evenly to the person that I like to listen to. Mind you, I'm on Spotify. I listen to just Joe Rogan. So why the hell is everybody else getting my money? How come Joe Rogan isn't the only person getting my money? Same thing with Netflix. I paid $14.99 for Netflix. I only watch one show. You should be giving my $14.99 to that one show. But they don't do that. They put it behind the paywall. They take a big cut of it, and then they start giving these other musicians and creatives like dirt change. So here's what's left, guys. You guys can fight amongst it.
So
that's dangerous.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with the whole versus thing with Timberland and
a little bit. Yep.
What's Swiss Beats.
Yep.
So for a while he's been trying to pay artists, right?
Yep.
So he's been saying it's like, how is it that they're losing royalties on art pieces or whatever it may be? And now the whole versus thing happened.
Right.
They sold it to a company, and all the creatives that were on it are getting a cut. So
ownership.
That's what it is. So it's like, this is what you're talking about, you know, and I think that creatives are now realizing this, and there's people in positions that are doing this, and now there's Joe, so I think, again, it's going to take some time, but it's really getting upset about not the non-accessibility, these raw deals that are terrible,
being at the table.
Yeah.
Why are we not at the table?
And being at the table or creating your own table. That's another thing. It's just like,
sure. I like
sometimes
that.
the table is so whack. Let me tell you, I get to the table and I'm like, estaba jodiendo pa esto.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
This guy's about to fall asleep over here. This one over here don't know nothing. Yeah, the table's disappointing.
I mean, one of the biggest things that I've always realized is all about resources and all about accessibilities. There's just some people who can get to the table a lot faster, not necessarily qualified.
Sure.
So it's like, there's that avenue of like get into positions of credibility, but also don't be scared to start your own stuff. Like
ownership, all things.
Yeah, connect with people and see what ideas you can come out, because I feel like from even this whole conversation, I'm looking at things a little bit different.
Cool. That's cool. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I hope
No,
it's
good. It's good.
Yeah. Because I go on these tangents, but it's because I'm very passionate about the creator, especially, you're doing art. You help artists
Mm.
of all shapes and colors and all that stuff. So I'm excited about that for you, but I get more passionate at that because not only is us creators need to know our value because we don't need them to tell us what our value is, but especially as minorities, especially as Hispanics,
Mm-hmm.
especially, and it's not a victimhood thing. It's not because we need a piece of the pie and they don't give it to us. It's because of what I said earlier. They're mayonnaise, we're the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
We make it, their companies go kaboom. Why? Let's make our own companies go kaboom.
Exactly.
Because they can't do music like we do. They can't do art like we do. They can't do fashion like we do. Damn it, they can't play sports like we do. Right? So, like, I mean, my buddy tells me this all the time. He's like, yo, imagine watching basketball with all white dudes. Be real. Would you be watching basketball with all white? I would not. You're going to see a bunch of nothings that you're going to see. And I love my white people. I do. But this is something that the bigger, older white people realize.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get Jasmine to be front facing for our company, our profits are going to go through the roof, and she's not even going to realize how much money we're making off of her.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so passionate about the creators, especially minorities, because this is not an accident. You didn't grow up in the projects just because, I mean, it could have been bad luck, whatever. But what I'm saying is that the things that you learned in the projects, how to wear your clothes, how to wear your hair, how to talk, how to socialize, how to hustle, how to persevere, you learned all that. And while you were learning all that, they were not learning any of that. They were in private schools. They were cuddled. They were in Mercedes in the backseat. They had drivers and they had nannies and they had everything brought to their house and they had all this and all that crap or whatever. So what happens when you and I, minorities who grew up in this rough environment, turn our rough environment into creative passions? We get the sauce. We get the coolest shit you've ever seen. The dopest sneakers. We get the dopest graffiti. We get the dopest, you name it. Name any industry. And people that have come from the culture have always made that industry go kaboom. That's why nobody wants a freaking Grammy anymore. Nobody wants a freaking Grammy anymore because that's mayonnaise.
Mm-hmm.
That's no longer the staple of who we are. We are more than the Grammys, and the Grammys didn't want to catch up. Similar to money. We're no longer fiat bank money. We're digital money.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all don't want to catch up, we're going to smoke y'all. We're going to eat your lunch. That's what's happening. Like you said, people are just upset. Now it's like whatever imaginary avatar you want to put, rich, old white guy, rich guy, there's a person you have in your head that you're mad at. That person that you're mad at is the one that keeps putting the thumb on us. Every time we try to get out, right? Enough's enough. We have to know our value, especially in the stuff that we do. And we have to understand that the free market decides. The free market decided Bitcoin was the storage of wealth. I didn't decide that shit. The government didn't decide that shit. The people decided that shit. The people are going to decide if they fuck with jazz or not. The people are going to decide if they fuck with this or not. That's the barometer. It's not what happened before. It's not that Spotify gives you 5 cents per stream when this one over here gives you 8 cents. It's not about none of that. It's about that I'm doper than Spotify. And I'm doper than most of the podcasters that are out there. And I need to know that. And I can't do an injustice to my audience because if my audience fucks with me and they believe in me and I sell out, they're going to bounce. They're going to be, look at this dude.
So question for you then, what are your thoughts on, oh my God.
Oh, man.
This is
girl,
so,
we're going to be here all night. What's the Grey Goose?
This is so bad that I don't know. I can't remember their names because this is the culture. The two guys from Washington Heights, Moro, Jesus and
Deuce and Mero?
Yeah. I apologize to anyone who
I don't listen to them much, but I
should know this. I should know.
We should.
But they ended up going to Showtime. And that was a huge controversy.
Sure.
So like that's my question from earlier.
Yeah.
Like, is it selling out because now not everybody has Showtime? I haven't been able to watch the show since because I mean I don't really watch TV like that. But it elevated it to some extent.
Right.
But some people may look at it like they sold out.
Sure.
Do you have those sentiments?
I don't know what the deal was. If they were able to own their show on Showtime, then they partnered with Showtime. And by the way, I've heard if you look at like Power and stuff like that, Showtime is one of the culture-facing companies, right? Like they understand creatives. They're like Cash App in a sense. They work well with these people, right? So they're not trying to gyp us in a sense. But if they got stripped of all their ownership, then they signed a terrible deal.
But let's say they do have their ownership.
It's a great deal.
But some of their audience is restricted to being able to.
Yeah.
Isn't it the same thing? So
yeah, well, that's the personal decision for them because now they're probably saying, all right, well, we lost some of them, but we're making more money over here, and we own the shit. So I guess they were willing to trade that out. But I still think
Oh.
even with the show out, they had a podcast out.
Really?
Yeah, not the they didn't take the audio from the show, so the show was specific.
So
different
it's
content.
just an outside podcast.
So it's like
okay.
the Patreon
yeah.
thing, right? Where
Yeah.
it was like, well, you can fuck with us on Showtime for extra shit, or you could get our
Makes
free
sense,
shit,
makes
right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really up on podcasts. Like,
Yeah. This goes for anything, by the way.
Yeah, I need to.
For you too.
Yeah,
Art
I
and
need
everything.
to.
Yeah. Because you're an artist, and
Mhm.
it goes the same way. You need to know your value, right? So it's your piece could be one of 10 in the world.
Yeah.
There's a scarcity to that thing, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've looked into NFTs. Have you looked into NFTs? This is a whole nother rabbit hole, girl. Let's get the Great Goose. No. The NFTs is this way that creators like yourself, artists, are turning their artwork digitized and selling it on auctions for crypto. Now, this market is new. So there's artists that I told Moses about this. There's artists that are getting like, this is going to sound crazy, like 600K in Ethereum, which is another coin.
Yeah.
And they could just turn that into dollars. So they're getting like $600,000 for their paintings at an auction. And the selling point behind the NFT is this. Jazz makes one painting. She gets it digitized, which they call it tokenized. And she proves that there's only 10 of these that will ever exist. So what you're basically selling now is the license to that image so that that person knows they have ownership for it. So do you know anything about Pokemon cards? That's mad corny. Right? All right, well, listen.
Nerd.
Yeah, I'm about to nerd out right now. Well, listen, there's a rare Pokemon card, a Charizard, right? Like, so there's a rare Pokemon card, and it's like the one that you have to have. It's like, this is the one. Anybody who, when Pokemon cards were hot, which I think they still have, my daughter just gave me one that I have on my desk right there. That one, if you have that one and it's in mint condition, you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, people would think it's just a fucking Pokemon card. Why would? And it's because it's valuable, because it's rare, right? So NFTs, long story short, have made it for you to be able to sell rarity in your artwork.
Okay.
So you say, and you get paid a lot of money for it, a ridiculous amount of money. And then the thing is that you're not selling the actual image, because then your next point would be and this muddy waters here, this is new. Well, how come I don't just screen cap the picture and now I own it, right? Well, you may own the screen cap, but you don't own proof that you own that. You don't own the license for that portrait. The person who paid the 600K does. This is the real cool part. Now, I bought it off you for 600K. 5 years down the road, you blow up. That now original piece of work that I got from you is $1 million. I can go sell it for $1 million, and because you're on the blockchain, you will always get royalties every time that moves hands.
Ah, so there's royalties involved.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And it's
well, it's licensing, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a smart contract, so you don't need like the government, or you don't need the bank, or you don't need an authority figure that mandates this. No matter what, when that license is sold over, you are living in this ledger, right? This ledger that can't be erased, can't be manipulated, which is what Bitcoin is. You're living in this ledger as you are the creator of this, and anytime that license move hands, you get whatever the percentage is when you send up, 10%, 15%, whatever.
Okay.
So what it does is it gets normal people like you, Moses, people that are like on the come up and doing incredible work to be able to compete with like the art galleries of the world, right? Like I can't get 60,000 Mona Lisa piece or whatever, but I could sell my stuff in a crypto auction where a lot of crypto people are going to say, yo, that's dope. Let me buy that. There's only 10 of them that are ever going to exist. And I've been following Jasmine, and she's been hot. I believe in her. This is going to be worth money.
Oh, I see how it works. Okay.
Yeah. There's a famous artist called Beeple. I don't know much about him, but he's so famous because he just recently sold the piece. That's why I keep using that 600K. I think it was 60 million. Anyways, he went up and he's been doing one piece of art a day for the last 3 years for free. Like he's on his Twitter or whatever. He's like, oh, the pick of the day. And then he'll just put up like a collage or whatever he worked on that day, right? It started as sketching and then eventually it turned into digital stuff.
Yeah.
And then this NFT came around and he literally the other day became history because I think he sold one of his pieces for $60 million. And the lesson there is that he was getting the avenues that the normal artists were getting, and he wasn't making anything, barely getting by. And now technology has brought this new avenue where the playing field got leveled. Now he can sell his artwork for the same thing that these museums are selling their artwork for.
And it's just art? It's a platform for art or different?
The music industry is doing it.
Okay.
Kings of Leon, they're a band. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
Yep. Kings of Leon dropped their album, and I think they threw a bunch of perks in it. So if you buy their NFT, which NFT means non-fungible token, but it's just proof that you have it. If you have one of their NFTs, I think there was only 100, you got the album, and then you got a bunch of cool extra shit. Like they were saying, front row tickets to all their shows in your town. Like they were giving like swag. They were giving.
That's cool.
Yeah, so only 100 people can have this.
Okay.
So now down the road, if Kings of Leon, let's say they die in a plane, God forbid they die in a plane accident. Usually when you die in the music industry, you become a lot more wealthier, right? People start to miss you, et cetera, et cetera. Now you are one of those 100 people that bought that NFT of Kings of Leon. And that shit goes through the roof. Now you got your rare Pokemon card. Now you had your rare, Michael Jordan card.
So it becomes part of the estate, and then
yeah, it becomes big. So the Kings of Leon estate moves when you move it, but you get paid because that NFT now raised in value.
Okay, no, I've never heard of it. Yeah,
so it's really new. I told Moses, I was like, yeah, listen, we haven't talked enough.
Anything digital, it's like, I swear, to me, I'm like, computers are not gonna last long.
Oh,
and
man,
here we are.
Here we are, yeah. Now we're doing trustless computers, and that's what Bitcoin works. Is this whole thing where, we don't need to trust an entity when we could have like a peer-to-peer network. And what a peer-to-peer network is just exactly how it sounds. So if Bitcoin is a ledger of transactions, that's what the blockchain is. It says Jasmine is worth this much, Jose's worth this much, blah, 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 all the transactions that ever happened, right? So now the key to this is that every single person on the network that has a node now has a copy. So therefore, it can't be manipulated because everybody else would know that you're fucking with it. It can't be cheated because everybody else know. And like we said earlier, they'll kick you the fuck out the club. And there's always a copy of it that exists. So if your phone were to get hacked or the United States loses energy or whatever, you can still recover your Bitcoin wallet somewhere else in the world or anywhere because the system exists, the ledger exists that proves you're worth that much Bitcoin, and 1,000 different computers. They're constantly updating.
It's a transparency with it all. I think.
That's the key to Bitcoin. And that's the key to its security, right? Because people are, why is it secure? It's a simple technology. I'm a coder, and this is really geeky stuff. But people look at the Bitcoin core code, and they're like, man, that code hasn't changed in like 15 years. That's going to break. That's not secure. Where therein lies the security. Because I've had a few security guys on the show, and they've told me, they're like, the key to security when it comes to software is being basic. Because the more features you add, the more code and this and that, the more back doors you allow for hackers to get into. Because now you're going in uncharted territory. You're just building shit and not knowing what can happen.
Yeah, sure.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin hasn't changed in 12 years. And that's what makes it secure because we know what it does. It's done it nonstop. I think the uptime for Bitcoin, meaning how long it's been up, is literally 99.9% in 12 years. The system's never crashed.
Yeah.
It's never gone down. Nobody can tamper with it. It's pretty much foolproof. And I've spoken, back to being Spanish or whatever, I've spoken to an individual named Jan. He's the CTO of Swan Bitcoin. And he's Russian. And he explained to me, he's like, look, in the United States, Bitcoin is a stock. Right? In the United States, people care about money. They want their money to go up. And he's like, I'm going to tell you a story. When my parents left Russia, they didn't leave because they wanted to. They were forced to leave Russia. And when they were forced to leave Russia, they could bring nothing with them. They lost their clothes. They lost their money. I think it was the rupee, I believe is their currency at the time. They lost their money. They lost their businesses. They lost it all, right? He's like, now if they would have had Bitcoin, Bitcoin is borderless. They could have just left the country, landed in the United States, and redeemed all their wealth right away with no government intervention, no wire transfer, no debasing, no taxes, and nobody eating it on the way. If you were to wire $1,000 to China right now, only 700 is going to make it there. And it's going to take a week. Why? Because the federal system is set up to the point where I send it to this bank, they take a piece. I send it to that bank, they take a piece. I send it to that bank, they take a piece. All the way across the globe till it reaches China. And then when it lands in China, China's going to take a piece too.
So is there no regulation with Bitcoin? You can send whatever amount?
You can send whatever amount. And it's anonymous, right? So you're sending to addresses. You're not sending to...
That's not dangerous? You don't find that dangerous?
What?
There's no... Like, isn't the reason why... Again, systems that have been in place, isn't the reason why banks have these checks and balances is to make sure that there's no fraud being committed or...
Well, that only works...
Hire for murder.
Yeah, well, that only works if you yourself, the bank, are not committing fraud, which you are every single day, right? So this is the thing. You're entrusting yourself to entities that are doing illegal activity with your money anyways, and that's what the bank is doing. You can't make up money. If I give you $1,000, you give it back to me to the point that you have it, but it's just an imaginary number. It doesn't exist, right? Because we don't have gold to back our currency anymore. We did, and that was the catch, which is like, oh, the dollar is strong because gold backs it. There's a value behind it, right? That's no longer the case. So when I leave my $1,000 to the bank and they go send it up to Wall Street and they get their 5, 6, 10% return on that dollar, and then and my account doesn't change, it's just $1,000. That's fraud. That's illegal, right? But we can't see the ledger, so we can't do that, and we just let them get away with it because we think the bank is safety. We think that that's the place to store it. But really, what the bank is doing is they're using that money to go do other shit and not giving us a cut.
Yep.
So imagine I was like, "Yo, Jasmine, let me borrow $1,000. I'll give you 1,010 in a week, just $10 of interest or whatever, right?" And then I go take that $1,000, and without telling you, I make that $10,000, and I give you $10. I never tell you. You're part of the deal, so you're okay with that, but that doesn't make it fair. Right? You trusted me to do something with that. And in turn, I just exported your time and value to come up and give you $10 in return. Put you at risk. That's what the banks do. A lot of people don't realize that they could wake up at any moment in time, open their bank account, and not have any money.
I mean, I read an article once that some bank just shut down and all the money was gone.
Yeah. Think about this conundrum, Jasmine. When you work your ass off and start a business and make a bunch of money, right? And then you take a flight to California, and then you're there and you're at a really nice hotel and you're hanging out with your friends and you're about to buy the bar up and all that stuff, and then you drop the card and the bank is like, "Nah, you frozen. You don't have that money." What? This has happened to me. Nah. And then you start doing like the Kevin Hart thing where you start like explaining your bank account. But the way my checking account work is I have 500 in there, and that's my money. Why am I paying $3.50 every time I use the ATM? Why are you freezing me out of my account for security reasons? Why are you doing all these things when you only exist because I put my money in here and I trust you with it?
It's for your benefit.
It's a false liability.
It's for your benefit. Yeah, it's these false narratives. Yeah.
So in Bitcoin, it's scarier. In Bitcoin, you are your own bank, right? So that comes with a lot of responsibility, but it comes with the sovereignty of being able to have access to your wealth whenever you want it, be able to liquidate your wealth whenever you want it, be able to send it to anywhere in the globe without any central figures.
So liquidating, what are the fees for that then?
In Bitcoin, it depends on the miners, right? So the miners are the guys that put your transaction on the ledger. So to make this a really easy analogy, if you're willing to wait, you pay 10 cents for thousands of dollars, right? Like it's crazy small fee. If you need it urgently, then you have to be the VIP line. You have to be the big shot that pays to get by the line, right? So the more fees you pay, the faster the miners will take your transaction and put it on. But it works on a whoever pays more system.
Okay.
So the miners, they get paid for doing their job, which is putting transactions or whatever. So they get the coin that gets mined, which is they get to keep a whole Bitcoin if they mine it, and they get to keep your fees for doing you the favor of securing the system and being able to prove that you're worth this money, right? So that's how that whole system works. But the reason that that's secure is because everybody needs to get paid. I need my transactions to go on, so I'm willing to pay you. You need me to pay you to stay alive. Like it's just an ecosystem of no governance. And when you put your money in the bank, you're trusting that they're going to do the best thing with you. When you put your money in Bitcoin, you're trusting yourself that you're going to do the best thing with it. Yeah. And that's a power that we've never had ever before, right? And then in the same example, we're wiring. I could send you money without knowing your name, without knowing your social, without knowing your routing number, your bank account number, without knowing any of that stuff. In a matter of minutes, for a low-ass fee, I could send you gold, right? I try to send you $1,000. Forget about it. It's going to take a week for you to get it. It's going to drop to $700. So therefore, back to the example of everybody's getting sick and tired. We see there's problems with the banks, and enough's enough. And now we found a way to stick it to them. And now what's happening, which is why us minorities and us average people have to get a piece of Manhattan before it gets crazy, is that the USA now is in a global battle for who's going to adopt this first. The country that adopts Bitcoin first as a treasury asset, meaning they can still be dollar bills, but what backs the dollar bills has to be gold, has to be Bitcoin, right? The first country that successfully says, nah, we're moving to what they call the Bitcoin standard is going to be leading the world. I'm talking about leading the world in finance, leading the world in technology, leading the world, and miners need like natural sources and stuff. So they're going to be leading the world in clean energy, you name it. So the U.S. Treasury doesn't like what's happening, just like they don't like Wall Street, the bets guys dealing with GameStop and all that. I don't know if you heard that story.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
They hate it.
They shut it down. Yeah.
They hate Bitcoin, but they're at a point where they can't do anything with it. They can't shut the internet down. They can't stop us from buying it. They can't regulate it because it's digital money. You can't charge my tax.
Anything they can't regulate, they're not interested.
Yeah. So now what happens is you're not interested, but you have to adapt it. So what we're going to see, and this is my guess and a few of the buddies that I talked to, this is not a secret. What we're guessing is that the financial system, the Fed, the Treasury is going to embrace Bitcoin, and they're going to digitize your dollar, right? So what's going to happen is these things called stable coins. And that basically just means is they take your dollar, they turn it into a coin, but it always matches a dollar. A dollar, a dollar. As opposed to if I have a dollar in Bitcoin and I have a dollar, my Bitcoin could go up in price, right? So if you want to have digital dollars, you'll get a stable coin, dollar for dollar, right? So now the bank, when you deposit your money in the background without you seeing it, they're going to turn it into a stable coin. Once it turns into a stable coin, crypto rules apply. And I can send it all over the world really fast, low fees, no $3.50 bullshit, none of that shit. And then when Jasmine gets it on the other end, the ATM is going to convert it into real dollars and she's going to be able to pull it out. That's going to make the banking system go digital. It's going to be great. But in order for that, the Treasury needs to shut the fuck up and adapt the Bitcoin standard.
Yeah.
If they don't, and another country does this, say China, the US dollar is going to go way fast. It's going to eliminate itself. And that military that we keep saying, that's why the US dollar is powerful, because we back it with the most powerful military. When your currency goes to the shit and you start seeing what you're seeing in this country with 2020, where the people are splitting up and the people are noticing that this is just one big theater show, your dollar is going to be nothing, and neither is your military, because these wars are no longer fought with nuclear missiles. They're fought on computers.
Yeah.
So we're heading into an area where the more sovereign we are, the less we depend on the federal government, the less we depend on big pharma, hospitals, the less we depend on the public education system, the less we depend on these things, the more sovereign we are, right? Because now we get to traverse the world and be curious, right? I could go on about this stuff all day. But in medieval times, the church was the government, right? And what the church tried to do is, when the printing press was invented, they tried to eliminate the printing press because the church had a monopoly on thought, right? It's what the Bible said, nothing else. There was even a point where if you wanted to have sex with your husband in the medieval times, you would literally have to get the king to come to your house, and he would have to like sign off, like literally look at y'all two, like, you could beat that. There you go. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of shit. Yeah.
Right.
So what happened was rebellious people were like, well, wait a minute, this isn't the holy truth. We got opinions. They built the printing press, and when the printing press was invented, that allowed people like you and I to start getting our word out. And when we start getting our word out, people start to read it. And when people start reading it, they start to go against the Bible. They open-minded. They start to get curious, right?
Of course, yeah.
So the church had no choice. Regulate it, right? Get rid of the printing press. You can't use that. That's the devil. That's this and that's that. They lost, obviously. We have printing press. Now we got books. And now look, you got people that are atheists. You got people that are, Christians. You got people that are Buddhists. And the only reason that evolution of technology was able to happen is because we were able to share our thoughts.
Yeah, and that's government for me right now. It's like all this censorship.
Right.
We're not getting coverage from important issues around the world. It's very much domestic terrorism and whatever narrative they're trying to push, So it's like we need, and it's like I'm listening to this Bitcoin, and then a little part of me is like thinking about New World Order.
Yeah. And it might be dangerous, but we might be going there. Yeah.
So it's and that's where I'm at. I'm like,
yeah.
Are we going in the right direction, or am I just like doing the whole AI thing that it's like artificial intelligence, right? They're saying, oh, this is dangerous. We're feeding into this, and I'm like, yeah, you're
Absolutely.
Pressing play. We're actually doing this, so it's like you can stop. Just don't do it anymore, And they're like, no, So are we created a monster? So that's kind of like,
right.
I don't know if that's being skeptic. I don't know. It's
fair.
A different thought process, but it's
scary.
What's happening now is not working, right?
Yeah.
So
I think the free market has to decide, and I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So it's scary. And I think when people think of World War III, they think of like, World War II, they think about like a global war. And to me, World War III is just when, the civilizations under government as a whole start to see that we need to be more sovereign. And this is the war that's going on right now. And that's why you see things that happen on January 6th when they raided the White House, the Capitol building, I should say, sorry, and things like that. Now, I didn't think that was anything big. I thought that was just a bunch of wackos doing stuff. But it just goes to point that the least sovereign that you are as a human being, and this is what the government doesn't want you to be, is to be sovereign. The least sovereign you are, the more powerful you are, and they don't want that. And now it's coming way too fast for them to hit. So they got to adapt, or they're going to fall apart. And what I mean by fall apart is that it's going to be the Wild West all over again. These states are going to be provinces. They're not going to be United States anymore. They're going to secede, and that's going to lead to newer and better things. Now, to your point with technology, I agree. AI is scary, But naturally, we have to evolve to the next field of things in human evolution. And the perfect example is it was only about 150 years ago that there were still people on horses, just being on a horse, and we thought we would have nothing better than horses, right? But then what happened is humans needed more and needed to do more, so they needed to be stronger, faster, more powerful. So the next evolution of that couldn't be stopped is the engine, the steam engine, right? We were able to build cars, we were able to do this thing. Bitcoin is along that technology line, right? So it's that thing where we needed the bank to take care of our money because we had no way of taking care of our own money. So the service that they offered was right for a long time. It was right for our parents. They were able to get great interest rates and great mortgages and stuff like that because that system was built for them. What happened is now the horse, our parent system, it's not useful anymore. We need to go harder, faster, more secure, stronger. And that's where technologies like the blockchain and Bitcoin in specific basically pulled up and said, yo, y'all were looking for that technology. This is it. Now you can own your own wealth. You can be sovereign. You can be your own bank. You don't need regulators, and it's trustless. So I don't need to, like, you send me Bitcoin right now. I don't need the bank to tell me that the money you sent me was legit. I know because Bitcoin, the system already is trustless and there's no double spend, meaning that once you lose your Bitcoin, it goes to me. There's no like, oh, she'll hold on to 1,000 and I'll make Jose 1,000, right? So the system, they say this thing, say, don't trust, verify.
Yeah.
That's the security of Bitcoin as a model. So with the bank, you can't verify, you have to trust them. And when you trust them, they can manipulate it, which is what they do. Same thing with the hospital. You trust the hospital with your health, they manipulate it by getting paid by the pharmaceutical companies, and then you end up with kidney problems.
I mean, I work in biotech.
I'm sorry. So we'll diverge from there.
Oh my God, that's such a.
Well, I work in an OR, and I see some things like, an easy one is easy, like a Band-Aid that would probably cost maybe $1. A patient gets charged $65 for that one Band-Aid. Okay, so what is that? That's manipulation. So yes, the patient is getting their care, right? Which is all the patient cares about. Give me my care. But what the patient is not seeing is that they're paying. In that example, they're paying 100 times more what that Band-Aid is worth when they wouldn't have to do that. Why? Because they're not verifying, they're trusting, right? This goes across the board. Public school system, same thing. Everything that we trust that's like that, there's no way to verify that these things are true. We just trust that they're true. And when we trust people that we don't see and that we don't know, whatever, they do some funky shit.
I mean, the thing is, we were raised to trust the government.
Right.
And that the government knows is best for us. And
that's
it's the complete.
And they've proven that with COVID. I mean, you said it earlier. They're just not consistent with their messaging.
But I also don't think that was ever their intention,
To what?
To be in the benefit of the public interest.
True. Yeah. I mean, a lot of rich people made money off of that COVID thing last year. So, like, I mean, in the federal government, too. If you would look at those people in Congress and in the council and stuff like that, they made a gazillion last year.
Anyone who had money to make money made money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's where these things, and that's where we're moving into, even with social medias, which is a topic we don't need to get into. We're going on 3 hours here. But social media is another thing where it's like you're banning people, but the agreement that I and Facebook set up from the very beginning is that my friends hang out here. I could come here and hang out, and I could say whatever I want because this is a public arena. Now they changed that, and they became a publisher, right? So now they are saying what could be said and what cannot be said, and who can be on here and who cannot be on here. That's not the agreement that you and I made from the beginning when I started giving you my family's pictures, when I started giving you all this information. Does that make sense? So now a person like me who's banned from Facebook is like, well, you guys have already extorted me for all my information. You've made avatars of me. You know what my kids look like. You know my address. You know my business. You know everything about me. And now I can't even advertise that same business because you have decided that that's not the case. That's shady. I trusted Facebook to have my business's best interest in mind. I didn't verify that. I trusted it. Here I am, banned from Facebook. That's the whole thing. So decentralization, which is what blockchain technology does, is now we're moving to a place where there's going to be these social media networks that are on the blockchain. So now every message that goes in, there's no authority global figure that's saying, hey, that's allowed and that's not allowed. It's just going to go up. And the way they're going to kind of even it out, so like not everybody's just saying shit, is they're going to make you pay small nominal fees for posting. So in the Satoshi's example, if I wanted to go on a rant about Donald Trump, it's going to cost me 50 Satoshis to be able to post that rant. That's probably going to make me think about the rant. Like, oh, damn, I got to put money on this shit? Like, I'm going to keep this shit, right? But if I pay my 50 Satoshis, the network gets paid, right? Because I just gave them the 50 cents. And then I'll be able to post that without being banned, without being blocked. And this is the really cool part. The people that are on my side that like that and they interact with my stuff, every time they hit the little heart button or they share it, they have to pay for that action. And guess who gets that direct payment? I do. So you're paying them for allowing them to give you the platform to post, and your interaction, your audience is now paying you for the value that you give them, whether it's a rant on Donald Trump, whether it's an art class, whether it's whatever. They like, they pay 1 Satoshi. They share, they got to pay 5 for that. And you're getting that directly. Value to value. No Spotify, no YouTube.
So
you're getting that direct.
OnlyFans?
What? OnlyFans still takes a piece, but yeah. OnlyFans without the piece that OnlyFans takes, because they take a piece too. They take
Just to be clear, there's other things on there, right? There's
I told my wife about that. I'm like, I told my wife, I was like, look, if all this shit fails, we're gonna start an OnlyFans.
Hey, I've heard some things. Not that
I've heard and seen
interested,
some things. Yeah, that's the Wild West right there.
You already have the cameras ready.
Yeah. I tell her, if all else fails, you will catch my ass on OnlyFans. Literally catch my ass. But yeah, that's where we're heading. That's my geekiness. I ranted for a long time. So what's next for Yasmin, though? Let's get back to what are you working on now? What's your next closest goal? Where can the people find you? What's up? Let's go back to that.
Right now, now that I transitioned from the Worcester Arts Council,
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for serving for our people.
My website just went live.
Okay.
It's guzangi.com, which actually means your creative inner child, which is really what I'm trying to push. Just trying to get everyone to just kind of do the things that inspire them and don't be scared, like, to me, art is a resource, and it shouldn't be scary. There are no mistakes. You shouldn't take it serious. I mean,
love it.
You're supposed to have fun. That's really how I look at it. So right now I'm really focusing on doing a solo exhibit. That's one of my main goals this year. So that's really what I'm focusing on, and just really collaborating with other artists organically. Sometimes I feel like in an organization there's a lot of restrictions in how I can kind of move along those lines. But I think now that I'm just doing my own personal thing, I'm really excited to see like who I can meet, like new conversations. And one of the things that I've kind of been missing in Worcester, it's like an artist collective of some sort. Like there are some, but I just haven't found one that speaks to me.
Okay.
So you have a really good network. I don't know if you want to put a call to action. I have a feeling like there's something missing, and the community is looking for something. It's an artist community, but no one knows where to go.
Right.
Like,
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I'm down for some Sunday night chit chat, trying to pick people's brains, and then there's Clubhouse, right?
Clubhouse, yeah.
Super cool. Good platform to use. I haven't really kind of navigated those waters too much, but kind of the same concept of getting like-minded people together, and how can we elevate each other locally, right?
Yeah,
so
I love that. And the thing that I've heard that a gazillion times, but this is the difference. Most of the time, I usually think, all right, that's a lot of talk. With you, on the other hand, I feel that that's not talk. I feel that that's actually something that not only is going to be accomplished by you really soon, but you're actually hungry for. Because I hear a lot of people say, I want to work with creatives and I want to, do something for the community or that. And I'm not to say that they're wrong, but I think they're early in basically they haven't seen what they're reaching for yet. Mm-hmm. I think you're there. I think you've seen it. You've mingled with it. You've shared it. You've empowered, right? Because you've been giving grants to people. You've mingled with these higher, at least here in Worcester, you've mingled with these. So I think when I hear it from you, it's like, she's going to make something happen. Yeah. And
thank you.
If I could contribute in any way, shape, or form with this platform or with any other platform that I got, I'm definitely more than game. This is awesome.
I appreciate it.
I have all the links that you gave me. If you have any other new ones, then I'll put them up for the conversation. Yasmin, this has been not only the longest podcast. That's not bad. Don't make it sound like a bad thing. But I think you and I could talk forever.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I could talk all day.
Yeah. And I love that.
And we didn't even talk about the aliens.
Hey, listen, I got another 2 if you want. That's for the Patreon content. You guys got to pay for that one.
Right. There we go.
Yeah, see, you can get this one for free, but we're about to go crazy on the next episode.
Right.
But yeah, I hope this is not the last time we speak. Not only on this podcast, because I want to have you back and, give the fans an update and stuff like that and the listeners. But just, we were talking about when we took our break, the intermission, about how we need people, each other. And sometimes it's just one person, right? And I do got people around me, but this is different, Yasmin, because I don't know you, but I still feel like I've known you forever.
The crazy part is we have so many mutual friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Do we?
Isn't that,
I don't
yeah,
know.
we do.
I don't know, but I don't know about the
Yeah,
other ones.
like I feel like Worcester to me is so small.
It is. Yeah,
Like
small
it's
world.
like
Yeah.
your neighbor that knows someone's
That is
cousin.
true.
It's
Yeah.
like
And
what
you
is
never
it?
least
6
expect it.
degrees of separations is like in a
Probably,
block.
Yeah, but see, you know how to leverage that, and I need to learn from you how to leverage that. Because to me, it's like if you reach out to Jose, Jose's gonna do his best to do whatever, but Jose sucks at the reaching out part. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, but I
Yeah.
feel like again, like I told you, we're not perfect. I
Yeah,
can do
yeah.
a lot of things. I'm really good at like staying positive and like moving things forward. Tell me how to say that message on social media. I'll be like, come to this thing. I won't put the time. I won't put a picture.
feel you.
And they're like, no one came. You didn't give any details.
Yeah.
So there's elements and it's like, and I think that's what it is about collaborating and really getting with your community.
Yeah.
Focus on what you can do really good and everything will come.
Yeah.
It's just staying positive and really having intentions towards what you're trying to do.
Right.
So like you're focused on what you want, so it's easy for me to understand like where
Yeah.
I can be a value of your life. But
Yeah.
si tú estás all over the place, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I can help you.
Oh, if you could just peek into my thoughts, jeez, those things are all over the place. I know what you mean though. Like I have an
No,
idea.
but in regards to like your focus on your podcast,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
as a creative, the brain doesn't stop. So
It's going numb. Like think about it, like my book is due to come out this Wednesday on my son's birthday, St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And I'm already like, working on the manuscript for the next one. Like to me, it's just, it doesn't stop. I don't even think this one is good. And I know you're gonna be like, oh, that's how we are, whatever. I've had people tell me it's great. That's awesome. I've already moved on mentally, not like promoting it or not, whatever. But now it's about to be out into the world. That's all I can do on that end. And if you like it, you like it. If you want to support, cool. But now I'm on to the next thing. And it's that the brain doesn't stop and doesn't keep going. And then when we talk about assets real quick before we close this episode out, that's another one to me. It's like, look, if I write these books, they live forever. Right?
Yes.
And I have this thing too where I write one letter to one of my kids every single day of the week. And they don't read them. I don't even know how they're going to get to them. But my plan is that. My plan is for my legacy to live further than any money can take it, and more than my life, of course. So in my weird head, I find a lot of comfort in knowing that when I'm long gone, one of my kids are going to open up these notebooks and be able to see my words, be able to see how I felt about them, and be able to see the lessons that I want them to go by. And that's an asset to me. It's not making me any money, but it's one that doesn't lose its value.
Exactly.
It just lives on forever. So I tried to do that with my books. Will this thing be a #1 bestseller? Probably not. Long shot, honestly.
Hey. We got to keep the dream alive.
It's
Come
not.
on.
Yeah, trust me, it's not. I don't even think it has the length that it needs to be a full whatever. But I learned a lot on the process. I've always been a writer since as long as I can remember, whether it was writing raps in high school, whether it was writing poetry, but after that, so writing has been my stick. And if I could just give anything into the world that lives forever, I don't care if somebody gets it 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If I could help them, that's an asset in itself that doesn't have to bring any value. But in the book, I pass away, my book continues to sell, my estate continues to get value. That's an
and
asset.
I love it because it's just like you're saying this might not be your best work, but you did it.
I did.
You're doing it, you know, and even if it touches one person, that's one person that has now this information that because they saw your face, he sees themselves, she sees themselves, so it's really important to just be like, it might not be the best thing, but at least I'm doing it. And I think we need to get used to just getting it done. We want to do it perfect. We want to do everything, but it's just like, you'll get better in the next try.
Absolutely.
You evolve.
Yeah. I'm getting better just because it's done already.
Absolutely.
I got to learn the self-publishing process. I got to learn all the nooks and crooks. I was able to redust some of my marketing stuff and be able to build funnels for it. So it's been fun. But yeah, really, if I was able to soak up, because I got derailed when 2020, I think most people got derailed. Yeah.
Come on, yeah.
Yeah, but I learned a lot about myself because I went from, like I said, that first year in 2019, making $25,000 to my company completely falling apart. And it didn't fall apart because I wasn't good at my job. It fell apart because I derailed, right? My thoughts went all over the place. My health went all over the place. I just lost myself. So I've been able to bounce back, and it's through due diligence. It's through, Marcus Aurelius. I studied Stoic philosophy. I basically bootstrapped my way back to this level that I'm at now. And one of those moments where you're just kind of sitting in the shower and just like, man, if I could just help somebody through this same exact thing. And that's what I did. That was the whole origin of Derailed. And it's just 10 tools that I use. Every chapter is a different technique, from meditate on your mortality, to stop comparing yourself to others, just things like that that really helped me get it back.
Can you speak a little bit about
What?
meditating your mortality? Because I
Sure.
was raised, my mom used to do the same thing. Every
Yeah.
time we traveled, we used to sit down.
Yeah.
We used to go through all her bank accounts, any any
Yeah.
property that she owns in Dominican Republic, and she will make me sign it
Yeah.
and talk to me like if I die in the plane, like you. And to
Yeah.
me, it was such a crazy thought, but to not fear death,
Yeah.
I think has really propelled me because I'm not scared of anything. It's like,
Correct.
what, you die? Okay.
Right. Right. So yeah, that's exactly it right there. So we have this narcissistic tendency, us human beings, especially now in this age that we live in, where food gets brought to our doors and everything. So we have this attitude where we don't think about death. So what happens when we don't think about death is two things happen. The first thing is that we don't realize that we only have so much time, right? So we spend our time doing worthless things. We spend our time paying attention to things that don't matter, stressing out about things that don't matter. So what happens when you get comfortable with death is you no longer fear it, right? And then you realize that it's actually a tool to motivate because once again, you only have so much time. So the Stoics, it's not just Marcus Aurelius, the Stoics talk about this thing a lot. And Seneca, which is one of the famous Stoics, always says that, time is not something that we're approaching, it's something that we're walking away from. So every second that passes is owned by death. We don't own it anymore. So we have it backwards. We seem to think that we're headed toward this thing, but we're losing it and we're dying every single day. So the faster you realize that it's sort of like Pac-Man, right? And this thing is behind you and it's eating you up, the more you're going to keep moving towards the things you want to do, especially if you have goals, especially if you have children and you have a legacy. You see that what your mom saw, which is that I may not make it back from work today. I may not make it or whatever. So right now, my son's about to be 8 years old. Right now at 8 years old, it makes me savior tucking you into bed, right? So I actually sit there and take that extra 5 or 10 minutes to be able to spend that time with you, to think about you. And Marcus Aurelius actually lost 6 kids before he died. And basically he's like, look, this is a strategy where it's like whenever you put your kids to bed, think about that they're not going to make it. Think about that you're not going to make it, right? And this is not morbidity. This is not to just be morbid. This is to understand that kiss that you're about to give your kid might be the last one that you can give them. And we're so narcissistic. We don't think we're going to die. And we ignore that. Oh, no. I'll give him a kiss tomorrow. Oh, I'll play with him in the morning. He's going to be You may not wake up. He may not wake up. None of y'all may wake up. The house may burn down, right? So I wrote a chapter on that because, like you, the more I meditate on it and the more I reflect on it, the less I fear it. It's not scary to me anymore. It's just something that we all do. Another one of the Stoics basically gave the example. Alexander the Great and the guy who drove his chariot, his driver, were buried in the same dirt. It didn't matter that one guy was a king and the other guy was a driver. They were buried in the same dirt. So it goes back to that. Don't be scared of it. Just understand that every moment that you waste watching Netflix, every moment that you ignore that this is the inevitable outcome for every single human being, the more you'll get up and do the shit you got to do.
Yeah, my grandma used to tell me all the time.
Yeah.
La vida es rentada.
Yes.
Life is rented.
Yes.
You know,
and
so
older
you have
people
to
have wisdom.
Yeah, and very nonchalant, and she was not scared of death. And it was not like we talk about death in a morbid way. It was just, it's part of life. You get excited about living. You get, it's.
Yeah. And those people, I would argue that your grandmother's stoic, right? And those people die peacefully, right? Because those people understand that because they knew that this was happening, did everything that they wanted to do in their life. And they didn't leave anything on the table. Because the people that die in regret, and there's studies that show that people die in regret. As they're dying, they're saying, I wish I would have X, Y, Z. The reason that happens more often than none is because while we're living, we're derailed. We're distracted. We're doing this and doing that. We're thinking that the business meeting over Zoom is much more important than my daughter's gymnastics class, right? We're making these trade-offs thinking that there will always be another gymnastics class. There will always, but that's not necessarily the case, right? So once we understand death and we don't fear it, that decision becomes easier to say, hey, fulanito, I got to go. My kid is going to gymnastics.
Exactly. Yep.
We have our values in place. We have our legacy in place. Now, that's not the only way you could be derailed. There's other things. But that one, it snaps you back. It makes you realize that it's like, hey, listen, there's always the last time for everything.
And if this wasn't a time to reflect during the pandemic,
correct,
you lost some valuable time to really take a look at what decisions you've been putting into place. And I think a lot of people got a wake up call during this time, So,
and if you didn't, you were asleep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
And
So.
that's a different problem. You got to wake up and start seeing the world. Because I have a lot of people that are still behaving the way they were behaving forever, and they didn't learn anything. And
Ignorance is bliss, So
sure.
everyone is on a different journey, and
Yeah. But if you're a few chapters ahead, I guess I would like to think it's our obligation to try to
absolutely plant the
teach
seed.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's what that whole thing is about. But it was really things like that. I got a few. I have a thing about being active every single day too. Activity. I don't like to use I think I did use the word workout when I was writing the book, but it doesn't necessarily have to be working out. But I found that an honest way to get yourself back on track when you're derailed is to insert challenges into your day. Now, the life is so bubbly and cushy nowadays that it's hard to insert challenges. And what I found is the easier way to insert challenge is physical fitness, because just how hard it is to be physically fit, like to lift the weight or to do all that, mentally to get yourself to do the workout or to show up to the gym, that requires a challenge and a strength in itself.
Let me tell you, I was an athlete. I ran track in college.
Yep.
And it wasn't the physical part, please. It's the mental. Dios mío, like running in the snow, freezing, and like running track, you're in a bikini.
Right.
Yeah,
pretty much.
The mental, and it propels everything in your life.
Absolutely.
So you hit it right.
That's another chapter right there. Yeah, but like you tell people, hey, work out every day, and then they're you're trying to tell me I gotta lose weight. You're fat shaming me. No. What I'm saying is that your backbone, right? Like your strength and your perseverance are not being challenged, right? Because life is so damn easy. And the easiest way you could get like a double entendre, a win-win in both sides, physically fit and challenge, is to work out every single day. Because like you said, it's hard.
I'll read your book.
Read your book. I'll send it to you for free, for sure. I got the audiobook too, which is really cool.
So I use Audible, so that's, I don't know if...
Free, come on,
yeah.
Go to Audible. What's going on?
But listen, I went from like not reading any books like in my childhood to forget it. My library is incredible.
Yeah.
But
what's your favorite book?
So I have one on rotation that I always go back to. It's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. He's
I've heard it.
He's a spiritual guide, and that was the one book that just like snapped me out and just like brought me into the present. And it really just talks about it's the anxiety that we deal with is because we're either focused on the future or focused in the past, and we don't live in any of those moments. We live in this right here. So when you talk about tucking your kid in at night, that's what's gonna bring you abundance, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like this mental stress that we have and like this craziness that's going on. It's because they're taking us there, or we're going into depression.
Sure.
So when I need to realign myself, I just pick up that book over and over.
Awesome. Yeah, you gotta have that. Yeah. No, I read the Stoics in a similar fashion. I got actually over there, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations or whatever. And to me, it was like the similar to that. It's like these guys just knew life. And then Marcus Aurelius' example is like he was the emperor of Rome, right? He's a philosopher king. So to me, it's like this guy had all the excuse in the world to be like all the other kings, corrupt, extort the people, get women, and he did none of that. He actually worked for the people, right? And he actually journaled, entered, and he was very, just basically a good human and a good humanitarian. And then one would wonder, why does a guy that has that much power can sit down and reflect in his journal? And if you look at his journal entries, which weren't meant to be a journal, they were actually meant to be reflective thoughts to himself, and then they got published later on. You can see that he is hard on himself, the way that a king shouldn't be, because he has the world. But he understood these things where it's like, look, my brain and my perception and the way I behave, right, and these things like what's good for the what's good for the bee is good for the hive, right? Like this whole philosophy of we're here together, we're people, stuff like that, stuff that all these other kings lacked at that time. And he was that guy, and he was able to write these thoughts down. But yeah, I need something to bounce back every time. I'm not going to say I read my own book, but a lot of the stuff that I wrote in the book came from Stoic philosophers and that whole idea of that. They talk about memento mori, and memento mori is more to meditate on your death, and basically we're all going to die. So like be in love with that, be comfortable with that, do what you got to do in the moment, and you will die in peace. The death wouldn't even scare you. It wouldn't even be a problem. And for your grandmother, I'm sure it wasn't even a fear in her mind. She was like,
not at all.
I did what I had to do. I came, I went. And that's rare. But on the other hand, if you're derailed and you're all over the place, when you die in your deathbed, there's going to be a lot of regret. You're going to say, damn it, I didn't hang out with my kids. Damn it, I didn't do this. Damn it. And yeah, that's why I write the stuff I do. But yeah, my next book is just going to be more on like I said, there's a lot of stuff that my generation didn't know. It was skipped upon us or whatever. And I don't want to make it too broad of a book, but I definitely want to nail in a few points. Self-worth being one of them, finances being one of
Mm-hmm.
them. Things that would just, I don't know if they thought it was good for us or bad for us or just they were hiding it from us, but we got skipped on a lot of information that would have changed our lives, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to hit on that on my next book or whatever. But
Awesome.
it's just fun to write. I don't know. I journal a lot. I do a lot of these things. So my way of giving it is to write it down and
Mm-hmm.
try to organize it. Because really, that's what an author does. They just organize words is all they do. Um, but back to what we talked about earlier, the process involves sitting down, coming back to it, rough days, can't write. I don't like writer's block. I don't think that exists. But, having those, like, I got nothing, this is not coming out
Mm-hmm.
good, and being able to wrestle it, challenge yourself, and being
Yeah.
able to go through that. And, 6 months later, I got myself a little book,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully it'll change somebody's life. I got a few people that are close to me that are already like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Good, good.
I got a buddy of mine who had a health scare, and he's listening or whatever, and he sent me. He was one of the early people that got the book. He got the audio book because he doesn't like to read.
Mhm.
And he sent me a message, and he was like, "Man, I was never thinking about death. You're absolutely right." And he was like, "This book changed my day." And he was about to get really bad news on a health scare. So I'm glad he's well. If he's listening, which I'm sure he is, shout out to you, brother. But it meant a lot to me to understand that somebody who's facing probably one of the darkest moments of their life, because they could receive some news that
Mhm.
could eliminate them from this world, was able to not only listen to what I had to say, because he can get that for free any day,
Mhm.
but actually, reach out and say, "Hey, man, this
Yeah,
shit,
yeah.
this shit kind of
And that's
corrected
what
it."
I'm talking about.
Right.
One person gets touched, you've done
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's the same guy who told me to keep podcasting.
Yeah,
so-
you see? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a reason. There's
There
a
is,
reason.
there is.
Yep.
So you got the hopefully gallery by the end of the year. You got the website
Yes.
coming up. What's the website gonna have in it? If you don't mind me
So
asking?
right now the website has there are no current events happening. I haven't booked
Okay.
anything, but any upcoming events.
Okay.
My Redbubble shop is on there, so all my art has been uploaded.
Sweet.
Yeah. And then just a little bit about Guzangi Art Studios, and actually I don't know if I touched on that. So we're a mobile
Yeah.
art studio.
Great.
So we go to venues. Locally, we
Okay.
also do like COVID friendly private events.
Cool. Okay.
So that's something that I obviously picked up this year, and it's been really cool,
Yeah, yeah.
So just whatever people have an interest for, right?
Yeah.
Listening to my audience, and what they want. I'm just really here as a resource and just to educate people and like show them a good time.
Super cool. Nah, and it looks like you're well on your way for that. Now, what's the future plans for it? Do you have any? Have you gone that far mentally yet? Like, what do you in the future do you want it to turn into?
So really, I want to get into like product design. I don't
Okay.
really know that avenue, but really, it's just I just started thinking about this and really just maybe getting a space that I can share and
Yeah.
really bring like the mission of Guzangi Art Studio to like a physical spot. Right now
Yeah.
we're mobile.
Yeah.
But again, financial backing,
Yeah.
that's just a whole nother layer of
Yeah.
responsibilities and
Absolutely.
yeah.
We're not at those tables.
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, yeah. Not yet, not yet.
Yeah. So okay, so you worked in a higher level for the Worcester Art Council, right?
Mhm.
You gave a lot of grants to a lot of artists. My stepson is he's 14. He's an
Mhm.
up and coming, I would say, graphic designer. He likes to
Mhm.
draw on like iPads and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to him, especially living in a town like Worcester and being a minority?
The advice that I would give to him is continue doing what he's doing. And really, like, social media is a great platform for connecting. So
Yeah.
I would encourage that. I don't know if at 14 they have one, but I feel like
Yeah.
at 10 years old they have
He
it.
definitely got one.
You know, and there's a lot of organizations that have really great programs for kids. Like there's Main Idea in Main South, so there are these grants and we actually have been seeing a lot of like younger artists,
Yeah.
so really look into the resources that are in Worcester. Like the Worcester Arts Council is one of them, but there's other organizations and
Okay.
even for like people who are in like the COVID that have been affected, a lot of grants also available. But
Okay.
the I don't know if you guys know, but like the pop-up downtown,
I think my wife did a bakery pop up there before.
yeah, so like
yeah.
look up their calendar. They have tons of free. It's open to the public,
Yep.
so get inspiration from there. I would check that calendar. There's always events going on right
Okay.
now. They're opening up for like the public once again.
Yep.
But that's like the number one thing. Really like tap into the culture of Worcester and connect.
Okay.
Lots of programming going on.
Okay. And then these grants are like to start up businesses or to pay for education in arts. Like, what do the people use these grants for, or what do they apply for them for?
So it varies. So the fellowship is that money you can allocate it however you see fit towards your business. Whatever, like if you could do it for your podcast, right?
Yeah,
You
sure.
apply and you're like, I I need to take
I need Jasmine here every episode.
some classes to develop X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
It doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
The project grants are more specific. You have to have a budget. You need to have a plan. Like I need to be able to look at your project
Yep.
and understand that you have a plan in place
Yep.
and that this is actually going to be successful.
Sweet.
So it's
Okay.
like you're basically telling me a story. This is the
Yeah.
money. These are the volunteers. Like this is your plan. Whatever it
So
may
it's like
be.
Shark Tank.
Yeah. We've given money to like the Power organization, like a branch of that, I believe.
Yeah.
That they do like events during the event.
Okay.
We've done it to people have asked $250 to do a story time
Oh, nice.
at the library. There have been projects that are $5,000. You know, so
it's not just big projects; it's small.
yeah.
ones.
So it really depends on what your organization needs because remember it's reimbursement based. So an artist who's not really making a lot of money, I can't really go ahead and ask for $5,000 because I can only budget for 500
Sure.
or even less. You know, so
Gotcha.
that's why we want to do these direct funding. So
Yeah.
the kid who has a great idea
Yeah.
but doesn't have the financial backing, now I could be like, here you go.
You're good.
I think your idea is fantastic. Dale.
Yeah,
You know,
I
so
like that. I don't know if you can speak on it or whatever. What's probably the best thing you've seen?
I mean that powwow event was incredible. It
Right.
was like it was a light show.
Yeah.
So I'm into like electric and lights
Sure.
and extra. So what they did was there was a mural that was painted and they overlap like this light show
Yeah.
and it's an experience for I don't know, it just went on for hours and it's
Really?
like
Super dope.
lights and colors and like it was so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of our favorite. And then you know just like programs that within our community that have accessibility, just great stuff. Like we support a lot of stuff that's in the pop-up as well.
Okay.
That's like one of the venues that's really open to artists because you have to have a venue available, but just
Yeah.
really cool stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm so when I talk to you, I've talked to a few other guests as well. When I talk to you, people that are really in tap with what's happening in Worcester, I feel so out of it. Yeah, like I mean, literally, I live in the outskirts of Worcester, but yeah, I don't feel like
I mean, it's
I see this stuff enough. That's what I'm saying.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We are taking these applications and I'm learning about organizations. I'm like, I didn't even know this
Yeah.
person was doing this. Like,
Yeah.
what? You know, so we have a really good social media presence now and like we have great engagement, but there's so much stuff that people don't know about. So
Yeah.
I love it when we get applications and then I'm like, wow, I need to really check this out.
Yeah.
But this is why I say like there's an element that's missing for people to collaborate and really know what's going on in the heart of Worcester.
I agree.
So.
I think it's a connection problem.
Mhm.
I just don't think people know. Like you said all that stuff right there, and I've been trying to champion my stepson to do some stuff, and I knew nothing about any of those resources that you just named there. So, and I feel bad. Like I feel like I mean I'm succeeding in other avenues, but in like encouraging his creativity, I don't think I'm doing a great job. But with some of these resources, I think that'll be help for my wife and I, right? Because
Yeah, and let me know if you're ever looking for something. There's stuff coming up all the time. I'm always
Cool.
and I'm really proactive. I like to look up for classes,
Yeah.
seminars, like
Yeah.
Arts Worcester. Matter of fact, I'm going to a class. What day is today? Today's Saturday.
Yes.
So
yeah.
tomorrow.
Threw me off too.
I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
But so tomorrow they're having a class on how do you apply to do your own art exhibit. There's a process, you know, so understanding those things and it's free.
Oh,
Like if
super
you're
cool,
like
yeah.
there's a membership or whatever, but like they have a lot of things going
Yeah.
on. It's just being proactive. I think that's the number one thing.
Super cool, yeah.
Yeah.
And getting this word out there. I think the
Mhm.
city got to do a better job with that for sure. Like I had Maria Ravelli on the podcast, and she does the Worcester Community Fridges.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had no freaking clue that was going on.
Yeah, they're on their third fridge right now.
Yeah,
It's a great
when
program.
I saw it, I was like, "This is so great, fantastic!"
So they started this whole membership thing that it's like $10 a month and
The Worcester Community Fridges.
yeah.
I
So
gotta call Maria again. Maria, you didn't tell me that.
yeah. So there was like a whole hiccup with it, but I'm like, if I'm not mistaken, like you pay $10 every single month, and
Yeah.
they have a membership, so they're constantly getting funds,
Yeah.
which is something I wouldn't really look into it because those
Yeah.
are programs and like they're putting so much effort.
They
you
are.
know?
Yeah, they are. I talked
So-
to her, and I was just blown away through the whole conversation.
Mhm.
I'm like, you know how selfless you have to be able to
Mhm.
do this type of project?
Mhm.
And then I was talking to her, and I was like, wait, so you guys are going legit on the trust system?
Mhm.
And she's like, yep. She's like, if you rich and you come in here and take all the groceries, then that's on your conscience.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, how the hell does that work?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, this selfless people. But I didn't know that was going on. And then I saw it, and I was like, I got to talk to this person. Thankfully, like you, she was
Mhm.
willing to talk about it. But Worcester's doing so many things, and
But I know we talked about social media. I'm not big
Yeah.
on posting, but I
Yeah.
definitely tap into the city. I'm all like,
Are you?
not that I'm always on there, but
yeah,
I definitely like make it a habit to go on Instagram, and all the organizations that I follow,
Yeah.
I check out what they're into, like what's happening, like
Cool.
anything I can do to support. If I'm on a platform that I can talk about it, like
Yeah.
I try to really advocate for these organizations.
Really cool. I'm gonna try to do that, and I definitely got to follow you on IG to get some inspiration. But yeah, I think like you said, it's a lack of information problem. And maybe I usually say it's because I live on the outskirts. Like I'm not really mingling in the city.
No, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah, so I'm like, maybe that's what it is, and maybe the closer you get to the city, the
but
more.
that's bad.
What? On my end, on there?
No, on our end.
Yeah.
Like we should be able to not focus just on in the middle of the city. Like
we
should be reaching you. So the fact that we're not, and you're pretty in tap with a good amount. You know what I'm saying? So like we need to do a better job at bringing you in. You know, you shouldn't have to be like, hey, what's in the city? We should be feeding it to you. Yeah,
especially if I could be vocal about it, right?
Exactly.
Like if I could be like, I talked to her. I keep saying I talked to her, but I did. Ernie Floyd of the radio station that the guy in Worcester going on or whatever. So, and I was trying to work something out with him where it's like, look, man, like you could keep relying on the old school radio formula where you have to put commercials here, but podcasting has eliminated radio. Like people don't have the time to be live and listening to stuff, so they're missing powerful conversations and powerful information. Because they're not in front of their radio to listen to it. So I was like, look, you get a business, you get a podcast model, right? Where it's like, you know, all you would have to do is just schedule these podcasts to play over the air at whatever time, and then give the listeners a website or, you know, a platform like a podcast platform where they can go and listen to that same conversation whenever they have time. And you win both arenas. Because when I was talking to him, he was telling me all the stuff that the radio station got going on and how they got, you know, city mayors coming down and talking to them. And all that. I'm like, my man, I didn't know about any of that. And the reason I didn't know about any of that is because I'm not glued to my radio. I
mean, this year was the first time ever that we put an ad in La Mega.
Yep. La Mega. Still
you know, and it was like, I had to reach to my community, and this is the first time we've ever done it.
Right.
Did it reach the right people? I don't know. But it went from 0 to now we're putting in effort. And I think it took me to be in this position to move that forward.
Yeah.
Because if not, it would have been something that they just, it wasn't a thought process, you know? So I'm really glad that now our community is at least open aware. Aware that this is actually happening.
But now you're gone. Come on.
You know, but I feel like we did so good as a council, and I hope that I left a token of hope with them. You know?
Shit.
And you guys are in good hands. You know, I do wish it was a little bit more diverse.
Okay.
The city is working on it.
I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Go ahead, though.
They're working on it.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot. All right. So I'm assuming the person before you was mayonnaise.
No.
Okay. It was the sauce, too?
No. She was, she's she got the sauce.
Okay. Because
so
I want to compare stuff that you worked on, if you can, to the previous person's stuff.
Well.
You crushed it. Be real.
But we also have different members. So I have to give credit to the entire council because they held me down. You know?
Cool.
Yo era que estaba ahí.
Yeah,
you know, like.
Being too nice, but
no, but it's like.
I'm kidding.
Like as a council, but it really, like I recognize that there was a certain passion that I did bring to the council that I think motivated them a little bit to kind of grasp my ideas and just have awareness to certain things that I was speaking on. So, you know, it's positive, but I am still hoping that the city diversifies the council a little bit further, and they do recognize it because their perspective is limited. Yeah. So they do understand the importance of it.
Yeah, they got to understand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I know there's a few people higher up. I'm sure you know Eric in City Hall. I forgot his name.
Batista. Yeah. So we go way back. Yeah.
So like I know there's, you know, there's people in those places, right, that we need the right thing or whatever. But maybe it is the communication thing. I've reached out to Eric. I've reached out to a few people where I've tried to, and different avenues of my businesses, right? So like when I was doing the business startups thing, I really just wanted to help Hispanic people. So I asked him, like, look, get me in front of some teenagers, right? Get me in front of some people, especially Spanish or whatever, and we could hit a home run here. I could teach these people how to start a business for less than $300. I could do all this thing. The talk we were having about finances, I want to teach that to especially our people. I just don't think Worcester, like you said, is doing the outreach good enough. I don't think.
Apply for a project grant, you know.
But all right, but it's not a project. It's more like I just want to help the city. Is that a project? I just want to help the city. Like,
they could pay for.
I don't want that to be a business. Is what I'm saying.
It's not a business, but let's say I have 25 kids that I want to teach X, Y. There's certain resources that come out of my pocket that if it can be funded by an organization and now I can offer it to 50 people and they're paying for it, now you have a bigger reach. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like
Good point.
maybe what you could do with one or two people, now you have the opportunity, one, to make it public because this gets published.
Yeah.
You know, and now people are seeing who you are, your contributions to the city. So that's why it's good to use these avenues,
Yeah.
because doing it by yourself can be very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, so something to consider.
do
Everyone
that,
is,
yeah.
you know, if like you, individual, organization for one, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
501, yeah.
Just gotta have a better idea for it, I guess, because that was literally my idea. It was like, look, I got this information. Let me just give it to people.
I
But
mean-
I didn't think about like a venue. I didn't think about seating. I didn't think about teaching.
I mean, you could do it. We're
Yeah.
taking virtual. You could literally be like,
Yeah.
I want to focus on the my minorities who
Yeah,
don't have access
for
to
sure.
this.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big push. Like, we really focus on those types of events. So yeah,
I
definitely
wanted to
consider
do
it.
me and my sister wanted to do a Zoom where we invited people to do for like Bitcoin talk or
Yeah,
whatever. to
yeah,
try to-
yeah.
Because I tell you, like my sister's one of those people. I've always been geek, whatever. Keep
Mhm.
using that term. I hate it, but I've always been forward thinking, and my sister's been the typical like Spanish person, 9 to 5, and
Mhm.
wondering why she's not getting by and all that. And she went down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin with me, and she would agree with me if she's listening to this right now. It's like there's two worlds right now. There's the people that have Bitcoin and the people that don't. And the people that have Bitcoin are just the happiest of campers. And it's not just because their money's going up.
Mhm.
It's because when you go down that rabbit hole, like you and I talked about, you start to see what's not working for you,
Mhm,
what's working
mhm.
against you, what money really is, what money really isn't. And when you get this type of power, when you learn this stuff, that's like, oh, I mean, have you ever watched The Matrix? It's literally that whole Neo feeling where
Mhm.
it's like, oh, he sees that this is all set up to go against him. And there's a freedom to that. So I wanted to do that for Latinos. Didn't have to be specific Spanish speaking, and didn't have to be a specific age because I got
Mhm.
my parents to invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah.
But I really wanted to share to people what I never knew, which is, the reason that they win is because they don't keep their money in bank accounts. They keep their money in assets.
Mhm.
So we can sit around and waste a ton of time talking about, oh, it's because I'm Puerto Rican. Oh, it's because I'm black. Oh, it's because they're white. And some of that stuff may be true. But at the end of the day, if you know how to play the game like they do, you can play. And do
You
it
got to
better.
learn the rules so you can learn how to break them.
Absolutely. I want to
Yeah.
draw 2, not draw 4.
Right, right.
But Jasmine, this has been incredible. I appreciate you coming down. Like I said, I hope this isn't the last time we talk and we work on some project or something in the near future. But I really appreciate your time. I appreciate what you did for Worcester. I appreciate you did for Minority Woman. I appreciate what you did for Artists. I appreciate so much about you. And I'm excited for what you got going on and what you're about to start up. And I hope to see that gallery by the end of the year.
Oh, thank you so much. And I really appreciate, you giving me the time to speak on
Yeah.
all the things I'm working on. And really, like, if anyone needs to get a hold of me, I'm not that busy right now. So, like,
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
hit me up in the DM.
Yeah, if you want to throw your tags on there, go ahead.
Yeah. So, GUZANGI, that's my business name, my Instagram handle. I'm all over the place with that. But if you guys need resources, if you have any questions, anything that I can help you with, I'm here. I really want to connect artists together and just like give them knowledge also in the
Yeah.
things that I'm knowledgeable on, because
Yeah.
don't call me for finances.
She'll believe in you, though. She believes in
I
me.
sure will.
I love that. Jasmine, this has been great. Longest podcast. This is a record. This is going to be a hard one to
Oh, good luck on that.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard one to beat because usually I just run out of stuff to talk about. And I feel like we got another 3 in the tuck. But that's just me. 3.5 hours is what I'm looking at now. Once again, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Later, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me for another great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you were paying attention, you would have got so much out of this conversation. We talked everything about leadership, about finances, about self-worth, about being a creative, and that's something that I'm sure you, my audience, is paying attention to. As always, guys, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed the conversation, please rate, share, and subscribe so I can continue to have the conversations I love to have, and you can continue to get the conversations you love to listen to. As always, guys, take care. Later.